Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
A young man named Leon was sitting at a bus station, reading the newest release for Rem magazines. As he read Vegeta battle it out with the new nemesis of the series, Moro, just mere seconds after watching Vegeta punch the energy out of the Goat Man, he heard someone shout, "Look out!" With a resounding crack, a small flawless silver orb that had fallen from the sky and killed him with a single strike to his skull. Leon awoke in a strange prismatic realm that looked like space on acid. He then heard a voice call out to him, the same voice that tried to warn him. "I'm so sorry that sphere wasn't meant for you, but was meant another reincarnator. Your death was never meant to happen." Leon was stunned. "Wait, you're telling you will send me back?" he shouted. "I'm afraid I can't do that, but to make it up to you, not only will I allow you to keep your memories, you can choose to reincarnate into whatever realm you wish with a single wish." The voice replied. Leon was freaking out. His otaku mind was going into overload. "All my anime I'll never get to finish." Tears started falling from his cheeks. Leon was devastated. The faceless voice sighed and said, "You can reincarnate into that realm and as your favorite character, no less." Leon stopped his crying, lifted his brow, and asked, "I can be reincarnated in the Dragon Ball world as a Saiyan?" The voice responded, "Yes." Leon started to smile. "Okay then, as for my wish, are there any limitations?" "It has to be within reason. Nothing like omnipotence and overpowering abilities. In fact, you can only choose to pick abilities from that world or material from the same creator," the disembodied voice answered. Leon shook his head while he thought of a powerful ability he'd want. He then smiled and said, "I want insanely powerful healing magic." "That's it? Out of all the things you could choose, you pick healing magic," the voice replied. "Yep. I don't want anything too OP. It wouldn't be any fun then. Healing magic seems fine, as long as I can use it on myself as well," Leon said, grinning. The voice in the sky laughed and said, "Okay, I've got the perfect blessing for you, and to spare you the trauma of birth, I'll seal your memories until the destruction of Vegeta." "Wait, what?" Before Leon could get an answer, his soul was thrust into the Dragon Ball universe. "Vegeta! They just sent a message saying that our home planet was destroyed by a meteor," Nappa said loudly. "I guess I will never be king." "Oh." Vegeta grabbed his head in pain as the memories of Leon opened up inside of him. "Prince Vegeta, are you okay?" Raditz said with a worried tone. Vegeta smiled and thought, "Ha ha ha, I am the Prince of all Saiyans. Ha ha, I really became Vegeta in this world. I'm neither Leon nor Vegeta, but a perfect blend of the two." It wasn't like he took over the body of the Saiyan prince. All that Saiyan pride, his emotions and his memories merged and became a single new entity. Vegeta then felt a surge of information enter his head and smiled. That God didn't just give me healing magic, he gave me all the spells from Dragon Quest. The Saiyan prince could also feel that his mana was linked to his ki, and that it would grow alongside his ki. "Prince Vegeta, are you okay?" Nappa chimed in. Vegeta looked up to Nappa and Raditz before saying, "I'm fine. Turn off your scouters, everyone." There was only a squad of 10 men out here and only 3 Saiyans in the group. The rest were low-level henchmen belonging to Frieza's army. Since Vegeta was the leader here, they all followed his order, making him smile with an almost evil grin. With a quick series of ki blasts, he wiped out the remaining men, leaving only Nappa, himself, and Raditz alive. "Vegeta, what did you do?" Nappa shouted in disbelief while Raditz shook in fear. "Are you really that dumb, Nappa? Frieza calls back all our warriors, and a meteor happens to annihilate a planet full of people that can destroy entire planets with their fingers. No one in their right mind would believe such a lie." Vegeta showed his fury, "We're abandoning the Frieza force. Keep the scouters off at all times, but keep them with you. They'll have their uses in the future." Vegeta clicked a remote switch calling over his space pod and opened it up. Nappa and Raditz took a while to cope with what their prince just told them. "Where do we go?" Raditz said with a look of loss on his face. Vegeta sat in the pod and started up the computer. After typing up a storm, he smiled. Good, Earth is on the galactic map. Call your pods, we're leaving, Vegeta ordered. The two remaining Saiyans nodded their heads. After telling them they were headed to Earth, Raditz smiled. Are we going to pick up Kakarot? No, not yet. Kakarot has his own path ahead of him. Who's going there now will only hinder his growth. Vegeta was actually referring to the growth of his heart and the est cells that come with it. Raditz and Nappa showed a puzzled expression. Look, just know that we only have to wait a few years before we can make contact with Kakarot, so we can't stay on Earth. Then why are we going now? Nappa asked. Vegeta showed the ultimate form of Saiyan dominance by slapping Nappa with his tail and causing him to fall down. I'm not saying anything else, nor am I going to explain things. I am now the king of the Saiyans, and I just ordered you to call over your pods. The two Saiyans nodded their heads before bringing out a remote and pressing a button. 3 spaceships flew over and landed next to the trio. Vegeta walked over to their space pods and started to look around for something inside of them. After looking for a bit, he found the navigational equipment and checked the coordinates for Earth and then a few other dozen planets to hide the fact Earth was his destination. After a few minutes of this, Vegeta yanked the hard drives out from each of them and said, "This way we can't be tracked." The Saiyans nodded their heads, afraid to say anything to piss of their prince. "Get in, we're leaving." Raditz and Nappa followed orders when Vegeta told them to set the coordinates to his specifications. It took them 7 months to reach Earth, and in that time, Vegeta had gotten a handle of manipulating his mana. His power level could also be used as an indicator for his mana points. The 4-year-old Vegeta only had a power level of 1,150 right now, giving him 75 MP. For every 10 points of ki, I gain 1 point of mana. I can't believe how weak I am right now. The old me would have wasted 20 years or so barely scraping myself up to 18,000. Vegeta used the heal spell on himself and sapped away 15 MP. He discovered that the spell had healed around 10% of his injuries. I would have to cast this 10 times to fully heal myself. Vegeta then cast mid-heal for 28 MP and discovered his body had healed over half of his damage. To begin with, his injuries weren't too serious, so Vegeta's Saiyan physique quickly healed the rest of the damage with ease, giving him only a tiny Zenkai boost. Vegeta's new power level, Nappa's power level, Raditz' power level. Vegeta and his fellow Saiyans arrived on Earth 4 months after Goku. Using his remaining time in space, Vegeta had managed to get down the very basics of sensing ki. First, he started by maintaining a ki ball and trying to sense the energy coursing through his body. After several repeated attempts, Vegeta finally managed to sense his own ki. With his eyes still closed, Vegeta managed to see the shape of his ki and the 2 other Saiyans beside him. In the original canon, Vegeta often gets shown down as the number 2, never getting a chance to shine, when in actuality, Vegeta is one of the most talented geniuses when it comes to learning. In the original canon of the story, just by simply knowing of the ability to sense ki, Vegeta had almost mastered it by the time he reached Namek. However, with Leon having a much deeper understanding of how ki operates in this universe, Vegeta managed to master the basics of ki control and sensing in half the time. Near the end of his trip to Earth, Vegeta managed to improve his senses to reach outward, up to 5 kilometers, and was improving for every second that passed. He hadn't quite gotten down controlling his ki and being able to conceal it yet, but with current Vegeta's talent, it would only take a bit more time until he figured it out. Other than ki, Vegeta learned a few things about his mana. One being that it recovered to maximum after sleeping, like some kind of video game. The other was that his mana did not recover as his stamina or ki would. It was deadlocked until he slept or found some alternative way of restoring it, like a potion or something. After crashing down on Earth, the 3 Saiyans opened their pods. The 3 stepped out into an open field in the mountains. Vegeta looked at the blue skies and white clouds before taking in a deep breath. The air was cleaner here than back on his Earth, and any of the planets Vegeta had visited in the past. God, the gravity is so light here, Nappa said as he stepped out of the pod. I wonder if this world has good food. Should we conquer it now? Raditz said, rubbing his stomach. Vegeta frowned and sighed as he rubbed his glabella. He knew these two had a long road ahead of them, that it was going to be a pain for Vegeta to rehabilitate them. We're not here to conquer you two, and if you even so much as harm one of these Earthlings, I kill you myself, Vegeta stated, fluxing his Kai. We don't sell planets anymore, and there is no reason for us to fight weaklings either. Then why are we here? Nappa asked. To learn from them, Vegeta answered as he picked up his spaceship. The two looked puzzled and confused. What would a bunch of weaklings from a low-level planet like this? Raditz asked. Vegeta grunted. Just do as you're told. Pick up your ships and follow me. The two stood straight and nodded their head compliantly. Vegeta searched out the largest crowd of Ki he could find before they traversed to the nearest town. Flying down in the middle of the road, Vegeta went over to the nearest person on the sidewalk and started asking the resident where he could find Capsule Corp. Looking at the confused and shocked civilian, Vegeta laughed, almost causing Nappa and Raditz to fall over out of pure shock. The prince can laugh? Raditz thought. After snapping his fingers in front of the citizen's face a couple of times, the human pulled out a map and showed him where they were and where Capsule Corp was. Vegeta smiled and thanked the man, once again causing shivers to run up and down the spines of his fellow Saiyans. After flying off, they quickly made their way to Bulma's house, also known as Capsule Corporation. Vegeta was a little nervous to meet his future wife. His tail was flipping around wildly as approached the door and rang the bell. An older man opened it up to see three strangers wearing newfangled outfits and carrying what he assumed were toy spaceships. Dr. Brief didn't think that Vegeta was capable of carrying such a heavy object, especially if it were made of metals. So, guessing that it was some kind of prop made of papier-mâché project, Dr. Brief began to close the door as he said, "I'm sorry, but we're not hosting any anime conventions. You must have the wrong place." Vegeta then lightly tossed the ship aside, causing the ground to shake a little and making Dr. Brief's jaw drop. "I want to sell you these spaceships. In return, you have to build me a new ship that can sustain my training with a gravity chamber. The higher the max gravity difference you can go, the better," Vegeta said, plain and simple, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Dr. Brief walked over to the ship and started to study it. Vegeta then walked up to it and pressed a latch near the door. As it opened, Dr. Brief's eyes lit up. "Can you explain what this does and how it operates?" Dr. Brief asked with stars in his eyes. Vegeta nodded his head. Although he didn't grasp the concepts behind the technology, he knew exactly how to operate it. After teaching Brief for a while, Vegeta heard a young voice call out, "Papa, who's here?" Vegeta's heart thumped. He had recognized the voice that called out as his future waifu, Bulma. The short blue-haired cutie popped her head out to see the people gathered at her house and looked surprised. She curiously walked out and stared at Vegeta's tail before locking eyes with him and asking, "Who are you?" Vegeta held out his hand. "I'm Prince Vegeta. No, I suppose. It's King Vegeta now, ruler of a handful of Saiyans." Bulma grabbed his tail and gave it a quick tug. Vegeta felt a sting run up his spine. As he forced a smile, he heard Bulma say, "It's real." Vegeta stifled his laugh and thought, "She's so cute." After clearing his voice, he wrapped his tail around his waist and said, "Yes, it is real. I'm an alien species known as Saiyan. Our tails are a bit sensitive, so please refrain from touching it again." "You're an alien!" The Briefs were shocked. Vegeta looked over at his ship and pointed to it before saying, "I actually came here to commission your father to build us a new ship. In return, you can dismantle and study these technologies to your heart's content." Vegeta then gave a quick explanation of the gravity ship he wanted to be built, and since they were giving over the ships in pristine condition, he asked if they could push the gravity control to as high as one can get while maintaining the integrity of the ship. After informing them that they should remove the tracking software from the navigation hard drives and bugs from the scouters, Vegeta and his companions were asked if they would like to come in for a meal. The Saiyans had been surviving off of protein bars and cramped inside a small space for months now. Naturally, they couldn't turn down the offer. Picking up his pod again, the trio walked inside the house to meet with the rest of the Brief family. They were quickly introduced to Bulma's older sister Tights and their mother Panchi. Vegeta introduced himself and the others, giving a slight nod before saying, "It is a pleasure to meet you. I'm Vegeta, this is Raditz, and that over there is Nappa." Raditz and Nappa swore up and down that something was very wrong with Vegeta. They have never seen him act with such manners before. Thinking that he might have taken a severe blow to the head or been brainwashed by an alien technique, the two wanted to question their leader, but the threat of Vegeta slaughtering them kept the two silent. "Eep!" the girls squealed out as they gathered around the boys, patting their heads and pinching their cheeks. Since Vegeta and Raditz were chibi-sized, they ended up getting a lot of affection. Raditz was reminded of his mother, so he smiled and accepted their compliments. Vegeta played it cool, and Nappa looked annoyed at the Earthling while being frightened of Vegeta killing him at the same time. "They're so cute," Panchi said with a cheerful tone. "Oh wow, they have tails!" Tights shouted in surprise. "Please, dear, give them some space. The things they are carrying are quite heavy," Dr. Brief said, waving his hand. Vegeta waved his hand. "Really, it's no trouble. Where should we set them down?" Dr. Brief smiled and said, "You can follow me to my lab." The scientist then turned to his wife and said, "Dear, can you ask the chefs to cook up their best meals? These boys will be joining us for lunch." Panchi nodded her head. Then Vegeta suddenly said, "Oh, Saiyans eat a lot. Our alien physiology requires us to take in a ton of calories, so if you could increase the portions of the meal to about 10 times what humans normally need, I would appreciate it." It took a minute for Panchi and Tights to realize that Vegeta just said he was an alien and was waving his tail at them to prove it. "Oh my," Panchi said in a lackluster tone of surprise. "No way, an alien." Tights shouted with a thoroughly shocked expression. Vegeta laughed a little as he followed Briefs to his lab. Bulma was constantly asking questions about his race, and Vegeta did his best to avoid them. He wasn't too proud of his race's past history. After reaching the lab, Dr. Briefs told them where to place the equipment. Putting them down on top of a large steel platform, Vegeta looked around with approval. This truly was how a scientist's lab should look like. There were countless different machines and computers, several open projects, prototype flying cars, and new capsule modules that would contain more space than the current products. Vegeta's eye then caught something very special. He walked up to it and picked up the 2-star Dragon Ball with a grin on his face. Vegeta didn't want to take Dragon Ball from Earth at this point in time, so as not to disrupt the timeline just yet. He did, however, plan to go to Namek after this to have Guru unlock his potential and make a few wishes so that he had something to aid him in his training. The reason he didn't just Earth's dragon to wish them there was because, if he did, the potential that is brought by Guru's ability out would be lessened by the gains he make on the journey. Guru's power only acts as a catalyst to bring out that latent talent to the surface, and if they trained the whole way there, the Saiyans could stockpile the potential and increase the benefit several-fold. Guru's potential release is far different from the Elder Kai, not to say that it is inferior, but it only stimulates their hidden potential for a limited time before receding back into their bodies. The upside to Guru's method was that after the hidden potential becomes dormant again, one could refine it and go through this potential release process again after years of training and stockpiling new potential. Something Vegeta always wished Akira Toriyama would do for the humans as a form of training. He could only imagine how strong Krillin would be if he got his potential re-released. Not to mention, he plans on making sure Krillin and Gohan have access to gravity training. Vegeta imagined that both Zarbon and Dodoria would have met their ends even sooner. Even the Ganyu force in its entirety might not have stood a chance. He turned to Briefs and asked, "Can you make me a radar that can locate the radiation it's giving off? Since you buy the ships, I don't think that this commission is too much, do you?" Briefs hardly paid attention to young King's movements. He was so busy staring at the ship's mechanics that Vegeta had to repeat himself. "Sure, yeah, I can do that," Dr. Brief said, turning back to the pods. Vegeta smiled and said, "Thank you. And how long do you think it will take to build our ship?" Dr. Brief scratched his chin and thought, "If I'm quick to learn, and I usually am, 3 months at the least. If I run into problems, 1 year at most." Vegeta nodded his head and thanked him. After talking about and explaining more of the specifics of the ship's interior, Panchi arrived to inform the group from space that the food was done. The Saiyans all drooled at the sight of the pile of food in front of them. The smell alone was causing them to smile. Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa picked up the chopsticks and quickly began to chow down. For a while, the brief family had a look of horror on their face. As they watched the stack of cooked meat disappear into their stomachs, they couldn't help but wonder where it all went. "This is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten," Raditz said as he scarfed down another bowl of rice. Even Nappa couldn't complain. He couldn't stop stuffing his face long enough to think of a reason to start. Vegeta finished off his meal and placed the chopsticks down and thanked them, something that was still freaking out both Nappa and Raditz. Vegeta then stood up and told them that they would return in 3 months or so. Taking Nappa and Raditz, the Saiyans parted and flew off into the sky, making everyone shocked at their actions once again. "Ah, people can fly without the assistance of machines," Dr. Brief said, taking everything in stride. Vegeta started to push his sensory abilities to the limit. However, he didn't feel anything because of the way he was using his senses. The Saiyan prince didn't have enough ki to search the entire planet in one go, so he thinned out his ki into a thin line and stretched it out like a fishing wire. Moving the strand of ki around his body like a radar, Vegeta's senses covered several areas that had the greatest power levels in a second. After several minutes of this, it was as he expected. Kami was the strongest of them all. That very guardian god of Earth was watching them from the lookout in the far distance. Up on top of Kami's lookout, the pale green Namekian stood out over the edge in surprise. "My word, ever since this child has arrived, he has been slowly mastering how to sense ki. He even managed to find us." "Are we in trouble, Kami?" the dark-skinned Popo said in response. "I don't know. He hasn't shown any hostility to the planet or its people, but his power is far greater than my own," Kami responded. He's headed over towards Korin's tower. Far below the lookout, the 3 Saiyans had arrived at the base of the tower. Vegeta looked to the other 2 and said, "Start climbing and don't fly," as he ran up the pillar with blinding speed. The 2 Saiyans shook their shoulders and ran up after him. Once Vegeta reached the top, he saw that all too familiar bipedal cat. "Oh, this is interesting. So what do I owe the honor of receiving such a powerful guest?" Korin questioned. Vegeta shook his head. "Guidance. We need you to teach us martial arts and basic ki control." As he finished speaking, Nappa and Raditz had appeared beside him. So you're telling me that you all have such tremendous power yet no martial training? Oh, the heavens are truly cruel," Korin said, shaking his head. Korin had already gotten the go-ahead from Kami to teach them the basics of suppressing their ki levels. Korin was very knowledgeable and wise beyond the trio of Saiyan's years. With good grasps on explaining control and how to sense it, within just hours the 3 Saiyans had managed to suppress their power levels to around single-digit numbers. Once the trio of Saiyans managed to compress their ken to around 10% of their maximum power, it became more difficult to suppress and maintain. However, after hearing Korin's guidance, Vegeta's natural talent allowed him to see the true meaning behind his sayings. With enough time, Nappa had managed to push his to 9, Raditz 5, and Vegeta was even more so. Vegeta had suppressed his power level to 1, which was much harder than one would think. The closer he got to lowering his ki, the harder it became to contain it. He stood in place and was bewildered by how easy he found this all to be. So this is what I would be capable of if I had accepted guidance from greater teachers. Korin, impressed by their progress, continued to teach with vigor. Ki is the fundamental essence of all life. It flows through all things and exists inside us all. The Saiyans paid great attention to the lessons, mostly out of fear, but once they started learning how useful all this was, they dove into it like fish in water. You must become one with the ki, match your breathing to its wavelength, and slowly gain control. Feel it circulate inside your bodies from your core, and harness that power, reel it in. The Saiyans had this lesson crammed into their skulls several times, often accompanying a quick slap by Korin's staff when they messed up. Several times Vegeta had to threaten Raditz and Nappa to accept it. Korin began training them in how to sense their own ki. Spreading it out and using it to sense one's surroundings was an advanced technique that only Vegeta had started to master. Once they had a grasp on their own strengths, the three Saiyans stood up and started their ki sensing and martial arts training by lowering their own power levels and trying to catch Korin blindfolded. Throughout the entire 5-day debacle, Korin made a fool of the two Saiyans, while Vegeta watched on from the sides, observing Korin's every move and imitating them. When he could see the finely hidden martial arts style in the large cat's movements, Vegeta became enamored with martial arts. He was constantly using his ki to sense the location and actions of the bipedal cat to memorize every detail. Vegeta noticed that Korin was reacting without any wasteful movements. Everything had a purpose, almost as if he were playing a game of chess. Never using one's strength to overcome power, but to redirect your opponent's strength and movements to your advantage. Raditz was getting better at accepting the teachings, but several times during their training, Vegeta had to reel in Nappa's temper. The balding moron kept on sending out his intent to kill, and it was starting to get on Vegeta's nerves. In response to Nappa's outburst, Vegeta decided to show him firsthand just how important Korin's teachings were. Vegeta took off the blindfold and closed his eyes before he walked up to Korin. Stand in his traditional stance, Vegeta said, "Pay attention, Nappa. I'm lowering my ki to the same levels as Korin, and I will still be able to catch him because of what he taught us." Korin suddenly paused. "Oh ho ho, so someone did learn." Vegeta stepped forward and placed his hand out in a violent thrust. Korin jumped up and landed on Vegeta's outstretched arm and landed softly without making a noise. Vegeta raised his elbow the moment he sensed Korin's feet touch the slight layer ki around his body. Korin started to fall back while Vegeta took advantage of the opening it provided. He then quickly raised his ki and grabbed the water from the tip of his cane. Korin did a few backflips before he landed on the ground with a smile on his face. "Very good, Vegeta." Korin continued to praise Vegeta as he walked over. "You managed to imitate my style perfectly. Although these two aren't bad at all either. After all, I've never seen anyone so quick to learn ki control. Usually it takes years, but you guys have done it in days." Vegeta thanked him as he returned the water to him and looked at the two annoyed Saiyans before saying, "Martial arts can help us overcome stronger foes with skill. Now get back to work, you two." Raditz and Nappa sighed as they said that they were hungry and exhausted. Korin smiled and brought out a few senzu beans and said, "These will fill you up for a week," before tossing it to them over. However, before they ate it, Vegeta said, "Wait." Nappa and Raditz paused. Without explaining anything, Vegeta walked over and suddenly started pummeling them. He continued to beat on them until they were bruised and broken all over, and with the difference in their power levels, they didn't stand a chance at defending themselves. Korin was at a loss. That was until the two Saiyans collapsed and were both fed a senzu bean. Once they felt their bodies recover, they jumped up in surprise, completely healed and stronger than before. Korin was shocked as Vegeta said, "So it's true, so long as there is even a spark of life remaining, senzu beans can fully restore one to full health." Korin's ears twitched. "They can do that? How did you know?" "I didn't. I thought it was just a legend. I heard of this bean from the god of destruction when I was little," Vegeta lied, confusing everyone in the room. "It doesn't matter. What would you have done if it didn't work?" When Nappa shouted, his face showing a truly livid expression. "I would have healed you with my magic," Vegeta said, casting a healing spell on himself. The two Saiyans were shocked once again. They had heard of whispers that some aliens are prone to be able to use magic, but hadn't met one yet. The fact that their prince had healing magic had meant something both great and frightening. "So, how do you feel after your Zenkai boost?" Vegeta said with a dark grin. Nappa felt that his power had almost doubled as it was now at 1,190, while Raditz's was at 8077. "Why did their keys suddenly increase to such lengths?" Korin asked with a confused expression. Vegeta quickly explained their Saiyan Zenkai trait and shook Korin to his core. Such a perfectly suited ability for a martial artist. Vegeta then said, "You should probably make lots of those senzu beans to prepare for the future, and if you don't mind me asking, Can we take some away with us? Korin nodded his head and thanked Vegeta for teaching him that the sensus could completely cure someone's wounds as long as there is still breath in their body. Korin then brought out a few capsules that were full of around 100 sensu beans for each of the 3 Saiyans. Vegeta thanked him and happily accepted the gift, while forcing the other 2 to say their thanks as well, or else they would face his wrath. It took another week of training for Nappa and Raditz to master learning the basics of Korin's style of martial arts. Korin was once again impressed by their talent, mostly Vegeta because he had basically mastered everything he had taught almost instantly. After they finished their basic training, Kami saw that Vegeta bore no ill will against Earth, and was even trying to get the unruly ones to think fondly of the planet. While the Guardian of Earth felt that it was dangerous, having the Saiyans owe them favors would do good for his planet. Taking a risky bet, the Namekian decided to call them up and have Popo continue their training. Once they received the invitation, the 3 Saiyans flew up to the lookout and were immediately surprised. Seeing this floating in the skies with no support made them truly shocked. Even Vegeta, who had beforehand knowledge of the lookout, found that observing it in real life was something else. Vegeta and the group met with Popo and Kami, and since Nappa and Raditz hadn't spent much time in the Frieza force or his army, they hadn't yet learned of Namekians. Vegeta introduced themselves and told Kami of their origin and why they were here. We need to get stronger in order to avenge our race and stop Frieza from destroying anyone else. So it's vengeance you're after, Kami said, lifting a brow. Not just vengeance. Justice. I'm not going back to the old ways of being a Saiyan. Look where that's gotten us, homeless and without a planet to belong to. Vegeta tapped his foot against the ground as he pondered. I think we'll partner up with the Galactic Police and try to get work from them. After all, we are still a warrior race. We're just going to use our innate desire for combat and put it to a better purpose from now on, Vegeta announced. He could see that Kami had many questions about the universe and those that inhabited it, so Vegeta answered to the best of his ability. He told Kami about how big the universe is and how many powerhouses exist in it that can make Earth's forces look like an ant in comparison. Then Kami was asked, could you give a description of how much of a difference there is? Vegeta responded by saying, if Q was put on a numerical scale, then I would be around 2,300 now. You are 220, and Frieza is 120,000 at full power. Raditz and Nappa fell over and shouted, impossible. Not only were they shocked at Vegeta's plans for their future, but hearing how vast the gap was between Frieza's and their powers shook them to the core. That's why we need to change our ways as Saiyans, Vegeta added, confusing the two further. Use your heads. Why do you think that in all this time there hasn't been any Super Saiyans since the age of old? You're talking about the legend, right? Nappa said, scratching his head. It's not a legend. Do you know how hard it is for a Saiyan to be kind-hearted? We give in to our darker impulses instead of controlling them or redirecting them into something more positive without a second's thought. I think this is the reason Saiyans lost this transformation and why it was so rare, Vegeta countered. Nappa and Raditz looked to Vegeta and began questioning their actions for the first time in their lives. I swear that I will prove it and defeat Frieza with my own 2 hands. We are Saiyans, and I have the ability to heal not only my wounds, but yours as well. If we can bring our base power levels up to 3 million or so, then Frieza won't stand a chance. How do you know all this? Nappa asked. I was the prince of all Saiyans. I know more truths about the legends than most. Vegeta lied through his teeth. After hearing the whole situation, Kami sighed and said, I will help you on the account that should Earth ever come under attack, that you come to our aid. Vegeta nodded his head and said, I promise to protect this world. After all, someday I'll probably come here to settle down. Kami was delighted to hear the news. Vegeta then asked with a smile, now can we begin our training? Kami laughed, and then for the next 3 months they learned various martial arts and key manipulation techniques. Vegeta had Kami make them new weighted outfits, putting around 1.5 tons on each of them. Vegeta kept the long-sleeve shirt, white gloves, and the Cell Games version of his armor, but had loose blue Marshall Guer pants and a belt that resembled the fusion outfits, as it had two long cloth ends hanging from the side of his waist. Over his armor was a fusion dance-type vest, only without the puffy yellow collars around the neck and arms. It also was much longer, like a sleeveless jacket that hung just over his tail with a slit down the middle. The boots were the same kind as the ones Whis made for Goku. Vegeta noted that it felt weird having both an intense rivalry and a sense of admiration for Goku. The shoes and the wardrobe change were to show that Raditz was wearing what Vegeta suggested. He looked like the image from the What If Raditz Turned Good saga from Masakak's fanfic. He had his hair slicked back ponytail with a single bang that popped out the top of his hairline, and had the shoulderless black-colored Saiyan armor. His pants were a carbon copy of Goku's orange outfit, and the boots were still his usual Saiyan style. Nappa had chosen to simply wear what he was used to, but Vegeta forced him to put on pants, so he chose black baggy ones, like Raditz. After 3 months of training with Kami, their new power levels were: Vegeta, 3,500. Able to suppress power to 1% of max power. Nappa, 2,300. Able to suppress power to 7% of max power. Raditz, 1,110. Able to suppress power to 2.5% of max power. They didn't spar that much, so they couldn't abuse their Zenkai boost often. However, they still managed to progress very well in such a short time. The biggest gain of all was the decent foundation they cemented for their future for martial arts. Their ki control was around the same skill as Kami's, and would only improve on in the future. Vegeta was pleasantly surprised by the fact that he could learn some Namekian magic. However, he could only use the spells of the warrior clan, such as materialization beams, the instant movement to the afterlife technique, and meditation, which actually allowed Vegeta to slowly restore his mana pool over a period of time rather than sleeping. It's slow, but still something. Vegeta really liked the fact that he could regen his mana now. He also gained some good mental training exercises that would help Nappa and Raditz overcome the savagery of the Uzaru instincts. With this, he could teach it to other surviving Saiyans, so they could make full use of the 10 times boost without losing their intelligence. After learning of the time that had passed, they decided to check on the completion status of their ship. Bidding farewell, Vegeta and the rest flew off towards Seatcorp in a blast of intense speed. To think that we got so much stronger through only training. I'm sorry I doubted you, Vegeta. Nappa was the first to say something. Yeah, I can see why you came here now. But why can't we pick up Kakarot? I mean, we are here and all. Raditz said, looking a little frustrated. He actually missed his little brother. Vegeta was pleasantly surprised to hear something positive coming from those two. Although he had been smacking the manners into them over their entire time training, it was good to finally see some results. I can't tell you why, but if we interfere with Kakarot's life right now, we will only hinder his potential. Out of all of us right now, he has the greatest chance to achieve Super Saiyan because his heart is clean. Just let him be until he grows up. 25 years from now, we will return and ask Kakarot to join us, Vegeta said flatly. The two sighed. They knew something had changed their lord significantly, but he still refused to share it with them. However, at least they didn't despise him since Vegeta had started treating them with some respect. Although he was still a little rough when it came to teaching how Earthlings think, Vegeta had treated them more as equals over the past few months, and not some servants that were beneath him. After meeting with the Briefs again, they were invited to share a meal with the family. While they ate, Dr. Brief shared a piece of good news with them. The new ship and radar were finished. They finished their meal and let the good doctor lead them to the spaceship waiting for them. Vegeta saw that it looked like Goku's ship, but had more space and was slightly oblong-shaped. I did what you wanted. I managed to get the ship's gravity room to around 400 G. It can go higher, but based on the material the ship is made of, it can only reach around 450 before the pressure compromises the ship's integrity. I'll need better metallic composites to improve the durability further, and that could take some time. Dr. Brief led them inside. I've also built a large storage room full of dino caps that contain food that's both delicious and high in calories. A set of 10 extra rooms and a large bridge for an entire crew, a meditation chamber, and 2 cells, Brief said, scratching his head while taking a puff of his cigarette. Vegeta was impressed with his work. To think to have an intact spaceship really made all the difference. Did you also do, Dr. Brief interrupted him, pull all the navigational data off their hard drives? Yes, I've also added a nice coffee maker in case you're tired of health drinks and water. Got some primo stuff in there for you, so make sure to enjoy it on my behalf. Vegeta laughed. I can't thank you enough for the help. Don't be silly, because of you, I'll be working on stuff until I die. Such new and revolutionary technology has really opened up my world, Dr. Brief said, waving his hands. Vegeta still made Nappa and Raditz bow down as they departed. They waved goodbye when Bulma ran up to Vegeta and said, "Will you come visit?" Vegeta smiled. She was a bit young and might not even remember him, but he hoped, as he then said with a sad and bitter expression, "Sure, I'll try." After flying back into space, Raditz and Nappa asked Vegeta where they were headed. Vegeta sat at the bridge's captain's seat and said, "The first place we're heading is towards Yardrat." "Why?" Raditz asked. "To learn some more," Vegeta responded with a grunt. After setting the coordinates in the computer, Vegeta moved to the training room and told the others to stay out for a while. Setting up the gravity, he wanted to test his magic. There was a spell called Re-Heal that acted like regeneration, so he wanted to see if he could force his body into a constant state of Zenkai boosts. Starting it on 10 he felt his weighted clothing shoot through the roof. He cast his Re-Heal spell and felt his body crash onto the ground, breaking everything. He noticed that it healed per second and that it drained his mana in a similar manner. Every 60 seconds he lost 25 mana points. Bit by bit, he stood back up and felt his power starting to increase. Once he could stand, he started doing exercises. Thousands of sit-ups, push-ups, handstand push-ups, running in circles as fast as he could, shooting himself with his own kidast, dodging the laser training system, and constant shadowboxing, all the while raising the gravity level bit by bit. Before Vegeta had even realized it, 3 days had passed and he had already reached 35 Gs. "Ay, ha, ha." Vegeta started to laugh. His body was constantly healing through the use of his Re-Heal spell, which, in response, turned into more ki granted by Zenkai boosts, giving him a bigger mana base that would allow him to maintain the spell for a longer period of training. "With just this simple magic, my progression will be infinite." Vegeta laughed. He then shut the machine down and looked at his new power level in shock. Vegeta's new power level after 3 days of training, 1055. Vegeta quickly got Nappa and Raditz into the training room and began their 2-month-long journey to Yardrat. They continued to train and fight each other every day, all while Vegeta constantly cast magic to heal them. However, it had gotten to the point that he had actually run out of mana and passed out. After being fed a senzu bean by Raditz, Vegeta came to and was surprised to see that the beans not only restored him to full health, but recovered his mana too. By the time they had reached Yardrat, the 3 Saiyans had grown in power, although because they wore weighted clothing that added up to 1.5 tons, the trio of Saiyans trod carefully, only managing to reach 40 times Earth's normal gravity, the original gravity of the Saiyan homeworld, Sadala. Vegeta also made sure to keep the gravity training for him and Raditz down to much less than what they wanted. Vegeta didn't want them to damage the growth of their bodies by abusing it with constant gravity training, so they mainly focused on technique training and control. It would also be a lie if Vegeta said he didn't want it to affect his height. Vegeta and Raditz's age played a part in their slower growth in strength, so Nappa had actually managed to pull right up next to Vegeta in power. But once they hit their growth spurt, everything would change. By the time they arrived on Yardrat, their Saiyans' new power levels were Vegeta, Nappa PE, Raditz. Vegeta's power level was getting harder and harder to train up without abusing the gravity chamber, and he didn't want Zenkai to be the only thing that made him stronger, so he tried not to completely rely on it. Besides, the closer his fellow Saiyans were in power, the greater the Zenkai will be after the beatdown. After arriving on Yardrat, he made contact with the people and spoke through telepathy. During his experimentation with Kita, Vegeta discovered He could use telepathy by speaking with your ki. It worked by imbuing one's ki with clear intent and meaning before sending it into another person. It was a very hard skill to learn for the other two Saiyans, but Vegeta had no trouble mastering it after putting all his effort into it. After learning they came here to become students, the Yardratians tested them for a while to see if they meant harm. So in the remaining 3 months, they waited and trained to their best every day without invoking their Zenkai boosts. Vegeta didn't want them to neglect their martial arts training. He told them to use this time to focus solely on it, and when they finished training on Yardrat, they would learn to find balance in maintaining training and exploiting their physiology. After another 2 months, the leader of the Yardratians, Pybera, met with them. He was a large, round alien with 2 whiskers hanging from his jaw and 2 pointed tips at the top of his head, as opposed to the one like the other Yardrats of his type. Vegeta handed over his portion of his senzu beans as an offering. Seeing the beans' effects, the Yardrat leader finally agreed to train Vegeta, on the premise that he slay the frost demon known as Frieza. Vegeta nodded his head, and for the first year of their training, they were taught to align their soul with their bodies, which resulted in a powerful mastery of their Kai control. Vegeta was surprised to discover how much energy he was wasting on his attacks. For instance, if he were to use a blast that contained 50 points of battle power, after aligning his soul, that 50 could hit with the power of 5,000. It made his Keeper 100 times more potent, thicker, and more durable. One could even say flexible as well. In the next 12 years, they were taught a variety of techniques such as instant transmission, gigantification, and a couple of other abilities that Goku didn't have time to learn. Vegeta always thought it was a shame that because Goku sensed Frieza heading towards Earth, he left early and didn't complete his training. Maybe it was at that moment Kakarot started his strange behaviors. Because Frieza went to Earth chasing after him, he started to think that the world was better off without him. He didn't want to put his friends in danger anymore, Vegeta thought. If he had killed Frieza without holding back, then he wouldn't have gone to Earth looking for him. This idea cascaded all throughout Goku's head during the Cell Saga, only making Gero's appearance solidify his thinking. This is why he didn't teleport back when he was so close to Earth, but waited for Frieza to arrive. He was preparing them for such an event to happen in the future, a day without him there to help. Of course, if things got hairy, he would have popped on over and dealt with the issue. For all his naivete, Kakarot can be pretty thoughtful sometimes. Vegeta thought as he grunted. He then shook his head and returned to his studies. Vegeta was learning a useful martial art that could be used in conjunction with the instant transmission technique. Goku also only learned the first stage of this technique. The first stage of training requires one to place his hand to his forehead and focus all his essence into a single point. The second stage of the instant transmission is the use of the ability without relying on the pose, but to teleport simply because one wills themselves to do so. The third stage was even harder. It was to teleport Ki Blast and just body parts. Even Vegeta had a hard time learning this one and could only half complete it. He couldn't separate his body parts through the instant transmission technique, no matter how hard he tried. He suspected it had to do with the difference in anatomy, and in the end had his hypothesis confirmed by the one teaching him. Their Yardratian cells were unique, as they could always stay in a quasi-state of flux, like they were both in reality and not at the same time. Technically, if Vegeta could master this technique, then he could even teleport to the different universes. Yardratians, being masters of time and space, could even create storage spaces that they carry around inside their own bodies. Vegeta was fascinated by this technique. Unfortunately, it took at least 10 years minimum to create this space, 5 more years to increase the space to be worth anything. Clicking his teeth, he knew that it would eat up a lot of his time, but because he was still a youth, he had to let his body mature along with his training regiment. However, in the 13th year of his training, Vegeta stopped his training and used his instant transmission to go to Earth. He had to wait for around 3 months before what he was looking for finally occurred, for the sky to darken. The Eternal Dragon and the full moon Pilaf incident. Vegeta closed his eyes as teleported over to a trampling Uzaru Goku that was in the middle of destroying Pilaf's castle. Oolong was about to make his wish for panties, and Goku was seconds away from losing his tail, so Vegeta knew he had to work fast. He held Yamcha in place with his K as he shouted, "I wish for the Saiyan known as Goku to regain his senses through mastering a teachable method to control his Uzaru form. It shall be done." The dragon's eyes glowed before they shot off into the distance. Vegeta then looked to the floating and confused Yamcha. A wicked grin came across his face as he laughed and decided to teleport the bandit back into the middle of the desert where he came from. "Nobody messes with my Bulma. I won't let you cheat on her, you bastard." Vegeta then teleported him back to continue his training, since Yamcha never interacted with Bulma after the event. So he never knew that she wanted to use the Dragon Ball to wish for the perfect boyfriend. Thus, Yamcha never discovered that she was single, and in response didn't grow closer to Goku because of it. In fact, he still hated Goku, but was now too afraid to go near him. Goku, who had just recovered, looked at his giant body in disbelief. However, this came with the realization that he was the one who squashed his grandpa. The giant ape Goku started to cry out at the moon. Goku, drowning in his sadness, made Bulma and Oolong stop in their tracks. "Goku!" Bulma called out his name in worry. Goku tried to stop his crying and started to grow a resolve to wish back his grandpa and undo his accident. He looked to Bulma and said while sniffling, "Yes, Bulma, it's me." The giant ape grinned, making Bulma and Oolong freak out. "Can you change back?" Bulma asked, looking up at him. Goku started to calm down and shook his head as he said, "I don't know." However, after realizing that the moon was what triggered his transformation, Bulma suggested that they wait for the sun to rise while the Pilaf gang ran for their lives. Once Goku returned to normal, Bulma searched the rubble of the castle to get him something to wear. After finding an old uniform worn by Shu in the rubble, Bulma gave him the clothes while she informed Goku that the Dragon Balls will take a year to come back. Goku nodded his head and talked with Bulma about what he would do until he could search for them again. They decided that they were going to go their separate ways until then. Bulma had enough adventure and danger for a while and wanted to return home. The group split ways as Goku waved goodbye and flew off to Master Roshi's island in order to train. 2 years had passed since then. Vegeta and his fellow Saiyans stayed on Yardrat until he finally managed to master the spatial storage ability. Vegeta and Raditz had grown up quite a bit and could now train their bodies without worrying about stunting their growth. Vegeta was still the shortest, but he was a few inches taller than his old canon body. He figured it had something to do with the food that he got from Earth. After all, he ate plenty of eggs every day to make sure he'd be taller than before. The original Vegeta was malnourished and treated poorly like the rest of the Saiyans in the PTO, but Frieza had it out for him. Sometimes he'd try and starve him or have his men beat him up for fun. Not exactly a great place to nurture the growth of growing children. Nappa remained the same facial-wise but lost his hair, much to his dismay. The Senzu beans couldn't cure that problem. Their ship was floating above the atmosphere of Yardrat, while Vegeta was in a floating sitting position in his meditation chamber. The room had no windows, light, sound, or weight in it, so it blocked out the rest of his senses. Vegeta was settling his ki and visualizing his new technique. Taking some notes from the manga, he was attempting to master certain attacks he made in his future. After standing up and pulling out a dino capsule from his waist, Vegeta thought of pulling the material into his body pocket space and smiled. Laughing at the fact that he finally succeeded in creating his pocket space, Vegeta set coordinates to the nearest PTO base. They would hop from base to base, killing off Frieza's army and stealing their tech, right up until Goku turned 19 and had married Chi-Chi. He wanted to use the Dragon Ball before she got pregnant with Gohan because he had a funny idea. Vegeta set course for the nearest base of the Planetary Trade Organization and smiled as he checked over his own and fellow Saiyans' new power levels. Vegeta, Pilaf, Nappa Pilaf, Raditz PL. All of them had adjusted to 100 times gravity and still managed to keep up their martial arts training. Vegeta also discovered something about their Zenkai boosts. It had a threat modifier to it. When they got hurt, they could evolve to face a greater threat. However, it was more of a damage X threat, X latent potential kind of mesh. This is how I imagine Zenkai Boost working. It would be damage taken x threat level, x potential of the fighter, dxtxp. Nappa's talent in martial arts wasn't as good as Raditz', but he still managed to keep up, not falling too far behind. They now had 6 years until they would leave and pick up Kakarot. 6 years until he returns to Earth to meet his Bulma. So during this long wait time, Vegeta would put his gravity training on hold and throw himself into non-stop warfare, gaining valuable combat experience and clearing out a section of Frieza's territory while handing it over to the space police for guarding. Vegeta sat staring at the galactic map and decided to go for a group of bases near a dozen or so medium-level planets. Each one of the soldiers here had at least a power level of 10,000 or more, and the strongest had a power level of 90,000. Vegeta smiled and let out a small chuckle. It was as he thought. The Ginyu Force infamy was only because they were Frieza's pet project. Their reputation as the PTO's strongest members is simply unwarranted. Cooler's men were stronger. Cole's personal force was probably even stronger too. Something Vegeta always wished Akira Toriyama would cover. He would have loved to see the Frost Demon hierarchy explained in the original canon. They were only called the best because Frieza had high hopes for Ginyu's unique ability and wanted to put them to use. Perhaps he even planned on Ginyu to steal Cooler's body and have his older brother's body as his slave. That does sound like something Frieza would do. Vegeta thought to himself. The Ginyu Force did indeed become famous by proxy, making the difficulty the ZE fighters experienced in taking down the mobs during the Resurrection arc make more sense. He wondered why people that could probably one-shot someone of Frieza's old power had trouble facing down his men, and now he had his answer. There were far stronger opponents in the PTO than he first thought. Frieza inherited his father's army, and many of them have conquered high-level planets, which are supposed to be at 500,000 or more, probably King Cold's men or other frost demons. Vegeta deduced, only when someone even stronger than that appears does the army send for a frost demon to take care of them. And the owner of this place was indeed a frost demon that worked for Frieza's family, a general of the PTO. After arriving at the most battle-heavy area of space, Vegeta's communication system was called up. Putting them on, a screen popped up showing a member of the Galactic Patrol. The screen was fuzzy and constantly snapping in and out of focus due to them taking heavy fire. Unknown spaceship, please vax up, said the area. My forces buzzed taking on the PTO. Zap is currently danger a buzz to get close. Vegeta smiled and teleported to a planet full of oxygen and gathered up a large sphere of it with his ki. Teleporting back into the ship, he told Nappa and Raditz to do the same. Vegeta-style space combat, no suits, Vegeta said as he popped on over to where the action was roughest. He charged up a large ball of ki and shouted, "Big Bang Attack!" The massive ball of energy condensed into the size of a beach ball and shot off into one of the PTO's battleships. A large explosion went off as all the attention was drawn to Vegeta. "Is that a Saiyan?" the GP member that was fighting nearby fighter ships said with shock on his face. Nappa and Raditz soon joined him in causing massive damage to the PTO's ships. Within minutes of the start of combat, millions of missiles and lasers shot off trying their best to land an attack on the Saiyan warriors, but ultimately failed and was only met with destruction in the end. Big Bang Barrage. Dozens of blasts eliminated the enemy opposition. "Bunker bomb!" Nappa yelled, causing a massive explosion around the area he was pointing at, killing thousands of members belonging to the PTO. "Riot Javelin!" Raditz shouted as he dragged his beam across the battlefield, causing spheres of explosions to light up the darkness of space. However, one ship remained untouched. It was the being with a power level of 90,000. Vegeta looked to his allies and said, "Don't interfere." He flew over and stopped just in front of the crab-like mothership that belonged to the PTO with a grin on his face. Vegeta could see a short frost demon that looked even shorter than Frieza in his first form. "Step out and face me, coward," Vegeta said with a grin on his face. He could feel his Saiyan blood boiling, dying for the challenge to fight someone strong. Flying out of the ship, Vegeta smiled and clapped his hands. "I applaud you for your bravery. Not everyone has the guts to face the King of Saiyans." The Frost Demon blinked a few times before pushing the button on his scouter. After a few seconds, the power level read back 75,000. Looking at the other two, he saw the same numbers. Ha ha, to think some of the monkeys survived. Inspecting Vegeta's image, the Frost Demon grinned and said, "Ah, I recognize you. You must be Vegeta." "You know me?" Vegeta lifted a brow. The Frost Demon laughed again. "Ha! The one who committed mutiny by killing your fellow PTO members and going AWOL, who doesn't know you. There's a nice bounty for your head. Why wouldn't I recognize you?" The Frost Demon then looked at Vegeta with a confident smirk before he said, "I admit you have some power, but you are quite a bit weaker than me. If you want a one-on-one, you'll most certainly lose. However, will your friends—" His eyes drifted over to Nappa and Raditz. "Don't worry about them. They won't interfere in our match. Well, aren't you going to introduce yourself?" Vegeta shot back with a confident look. The Frost Demon was about to reply when Vegeta placed his hand up and said, "Never mind, you're about to die anyway." With a blinding flash of speed, Vegeta disappeared and reappeared in front of the Frost Demon. His arm turned into a blur as Vegeta landed a powerful punch to the Frost Demon's gut. The Saiyan King stretched out the Frost Demon's stomach before he twisted his fist and dug in deeper. The Frost Demon belched out and stumbled back as he floated away, wincing and heaving in pain. Vegeta shook his head and said, "You can transform, right?" The Frost Demon looked surprised at the damage he suffered. No way is his power level only read as 75,000. He tried to catch his breath and buy some time by goading Vegeta. "That's right, you Saiyans love a good fight. If you give me 1 minute to power up, I can show you my real power." Vegeta smiled and said, "Well, what are you waiting for?" "Fool," the Frost Demon thought as he started to power up. His body became bigger and looked a little like Frieza in second form, only hornless and with a blue tint to his skin. His power jumped up to around 255,000, making Vegeta grin. "Is this as far as you can go?" The Frost Demon started laughing. "Yes, but it's more than enough to defeat someone with a power level of 75,000 like you. I don't know what tricks you used to increase your strength, but it no longer matters." Vegeta shouted as he powered up to his max. The scouter on the Frost Demon started to shake as it jumped up to 18,600. "I've never heard of a Saiyan with so much strength," the Frost Demon shouted in surprise. Vegeta shot over and started to throw rapid-fire punches. In response, Frost Demon returned fire as their attacks blasted apart any space debris that had formed over the battlefield. Vegeta, who had a lower power level, was constantly taking blows, but managed to at least defend somewhat against the attacks, thanks to his martial arts training. The Frost Demon continued to lay into Vegeta. Blow after blow, Vegeta got a little faster, managing to keep up with the Frost Demon's attacks. "Vegeta just got even stronger," Nappa said with surprise. "I'll catch up in no time," Reddit said as they watched them disappear and reappear across the area. Every time the two reappeared, they slammed into each other's fists, sending out powerful shockwaves that were absorbed by the vast emptiness of space. Vegeta felt his stomach bend in as his bones broke and started to repair thanks to his re-heal spell. Not expecting Vegeta to recover so quickly, the Frost Demon was caught off guard as the Saiyan King sent out another gut-wrenching punch that almost popped the Frost Demon's lungs. The two started up again. This time Vegeta was strong enough to start fighting back. Vegeta gave the Frost Demon a fierce uppercut to its chin, while the demon returned an attack by using the force of the blow to speed up his own. Landing a powerful backflip kick to Vegeta's chin, the Saiyan's neck snapped back and jaw and spine fractured. The Frost Demon followed up the attack, trying to wrap Vegeta's neck up with his tail while kicking him in the stomach. As the purplish appendage wrapped around Vegeta's neck, the silhouette of his image vanished. Vegeta used an afterimage and sped behind the Frost Demon's back before he noticed that it was just an illusion made by ki and speed. Holding his hands together with interlocked fingers, Vegeta smacked the back of the Frost Demon's skull at full force with a fierce axe hammer punch. The Frost Demon grunted as he flew through space like a tumbling weed in the wind. Suddenly, as he recoiled from the attack, the Frost Demon opened his mouth and shot out a powerful beam back at the Saiyan King. Vegeta responded by using buffing up his Ki and tanking the attack head-on. A huge explosion occurred, but Vegeta stood at the center of the blast and survived. His body looked terrible. He was barely conscious, covered in burns, almost all of his bones were broken, and only his ki was holding his body in place. "Oh," a frost demon laughed. "Why didn't you dodge? You utter moron." Vegeta laughed as he said, "Full heal." Suddenly, his whole body glowed an azure-green color as all the wounds on his body recovered and his ki skyrocketed. The scouter on the frost demon's face continued to rise and rise until it exploded around 3 feet. "I'm done with you now," Vegeta said as he took the leg stance of the Kamehameha and used, but his hands were in the shape of his Gallic gun stance. With a quick power-up, Vegeta launched his new attack and shouted, "Gallic Kamehameha." A powerful indigo-colored blast shot off, slamming into Vegeta's target. The frost demon put his hands up to block, but couldn't so much as put up a struggle. With a frightful death wail, the beam shot off into the empty space, carrying the bits and pieces of the frost demon's body with it. After confirming his kill, Vegeta pointed to the PTO mothership and gave the order to his fellow Saiyans, "Clear them out, but don't damage the flagship. Also, make sure to capture a few scientists as well." Raditz and Nappa quickly cleaned out the spaceship and captured a couple of PTO scientists without any trouble. They were both the reptilian bird-like species that the PTO member Malaka belonged to. They had short bodies, smooth beaks, and vibrantly colored mohawks. The species were known for being the leading pioneers in the PTO's technological department. Vegeta quickly stored the mothership inside his storage space of 3 kilometers and smiled at the gifts he would present. Boomer when he returned. After all, he missed a lot of birthdays. Confirming that the captives had been locked and bound in one of the holding cells, the group moved over towards the Galactic Patrol mothership. They were granted access to come aboard, and they were met by wild cheers and applause from the surviving Galactic Patrolmen. Vegeta then introduced himself and his party as remaining Saiyans, causing the shock of being saved by a Saiyan to end their cheers. It certainly threw the GP through a loop, but after explaining that they left the PTO when they were children and that Frieza was their mortal enemy since he was the one who destroyed their planet, only then did the members of the Galactic Patrol begin to relax a bit. "We have sworn off the old Saiyan lifestyle and vowed revenge against Frieza and all of the Frost Demons." Vegeta finished speaking by saying, "I want to form a partnership with the Galactic Patrol and help you combat against the PTO." The GP officer smiled and held out his hand. The 2 spacefaring warriors shook hands before Vegeta, and the rest were taken to the nearest army base. There they met with the commanding general and were brought up to speed on the situation. They ended up working out a deal within an hour or so of discussion. They would end up as a prime outside source for the GP to call on, and would get some of the best and toughest jobs sent their way. However, this was on the condition that they help them clear this quadrant of space and help them hold out until the main forces arrive. Vegeta promised to restore order to the habitable planets in this solar system. The reason he agreed to their plea is because it was exactly what he wanted: the systematic destruction of the PTO. This was a chance to prove that their words weren't just words. The first step in changing the universe's perspective on the Saiyan race. After taking off, they headed from base to base, slaughtering the members of the PTO, and even managing to kill off a few more weak frost demons while they were at it. One frost demon named Skull proved to be quite a challenge for Raditz. The frost demon had a second form and a power level of 20,000. Raditz suffered under the hand of Skickle for hours. Vegeta made sure to cast Reheal on him and watched as Raditz's Saiyan blood exploded with power. After 5 hours of combat, Raditz had finally caught up to the Frost Demon in power. It wasn't until the final form Skickle hit Raditz with a death beam to the throat that he received a Zenkai boost that threw him over the top. Raditz was roaring with all of his strength as the two fought fiercely, destroying countless PTO facilities on the asteroid along with many of its members. Skickle was beginning to lose his calm and tried to blow up the asteroid that they were on. Raditz wasn't having it. He came down with a flying front kick, using both his feet and stomping to the back of Skickle's head into the ground. Skickle screamed as his face was dragged into the dirt briefly before being thrown into the massive Kefi blast that the frost demon created to blow up the large asteroid colony. After he collided with the ball of energy, the explosion shook the area like a world-ending quake, while the frost demon fell to the ground covered in wounds. Raditz showed no mercy, stomping on his head, turning it into mush. Then, with a primal Uzaro-like roar, Raditz declared his victory. His new power level after the fight was an astonishing 300. Nappa also had a tough fight with a frost demon named Hales. The giant monster had a frightening power of 280,000 in his second form. The two fought like mad titans, trading blow for blow from the get-go. Nappa didn't stand a chance as he was constantly being thrown back. He even took a blast that almost killed him. It was a similar death beam that Frieza used, but in scattered form. Nappa had his heart pierced and his lungs as well, as his throat filled up with blood and his brain started to die off cell by cell. However, the next thing he felt was Vegeta using his full heal magic on him. Thinking the battle was done, the Frost Demon turned his back on Nappa and tried to mock the other Saiyans. However, an explosion of ki shot up from behind him as Nappa charged behind it, ramming the Frost Demon in the back with a blast of speed that he couldn't follow. While the singe from the ki pulse opened his flesh and damage from the Saiyan's tackle broke Halez's spine, Nappa grabbed the Frost Demon by his head and leg. Without giving Halez a chance to respond, Nappa pulled him in half, causing the Frost Demon's blood to cover his body. He then threw the rest of the torn body and launched a mouth blast at the top half of Halez, breaking him down into space dust. Nappa's new power level, 3. Raditz had once again fallen behind Nappa, but that was only because Nappa's opponent had a much bigger threat modifier. Vegeta laughed as they continued on their slaying spree and ended up stealing quite a lot from the PTO in this section of space. As a bonus, they forced some of the scientists to install the most advanced healing chambers they stole inside Vegeta's spaceship. Now they could abuse the training room without worrying about running out of senzu beans or overusing Vegeta's magic. After 3.5 years of wiping out all of the Frieza Force members, the Galactic Patrol had finally reclaimed this quadrant. Backup from HQ had arrived and joined in on the fighting. Vegeta was surprised to see so many powerful GP members and then thought he saw many with power levels of 350 to 400,000. It only makes sense, how else could Frieza tolerate the GP? Vegeta was beginning to think the warrior Whis mentioned that was stronger than Beerus was actually working for Galactic Patrol. After years in battle, Vegeta was starting to get tired of all the combat. He needed to rest and relax his mind. But the upside of the years of non-stop battle, the Saiyan's power levels were well over 500,000. Thinking of the year, Vegeta thought that Goku should be getting married soon. After celebrating with the GP and cementing their partnership, the Saiyans left the quadrant of space and continued on towards their Namek. While they traveled across the cosmos, a mysterious force with malicious intent was slowly correcting history in the shadows. Frieza Base 66. At the closest PTO base near Earth, a group of low-level Frieza Force members was drinking in a large tavern, and among them was a dark greyish-skinned Goku look-alike Saiyan known as Turles. You cheated," Turles shouted in rage. "I win. You have to take my planet-conquering job." A hooded figure sitting across from the yelling man held his hand out. They were playing some form of a card game, and apparently Turles lost big. Turles grunted before he passed over a pile of currency. In response, a thin, well-built arm reached out through the stranger's cloak. The skin tone of the mysterious being was a pale shade of purple. He wore a pair of fingerless tan leather gloves. Other than that, nothing else could be seen. "Relax, there isn't anyone stronger than a power level of 5 on that planet. You should have no trouble soloing it," the mysterious man said as he took his money and patted Turles on the shoulder. The purple man moved his head closer to Turles' ear and whispered something in using his ki to hypnotize the Saiyan, until his eyes started to glaze over. "When you get to Earth, this is what you're going to do." It was as if the mystery man was putting Turles under a spell. After a few minutes, the brainwashed Turles stood up and headed to his space pod. As his spaceship took off into the depths of the starry ocean, Turles would train for 4 years, hopping from planet to planet, fighting the natives until his power level reached 1,500. After that was done, he was ordered to go to Earth and accomplish the mission given to him by the Purple Man. The cloaked figure turned his eyes towards the direction of Namek and said, "So, my little anomaly, what kind of power will you grant me? I've pushed the timeline to a much more favorable and fun outcome. Don't disappoint me." He. It's like playing chess. This is going to be so cool. Meanwhile, back with the hero of the story, Vegeta and company had finally arrived on Namek. With their ability to sense ki, it didn't take them long to find Guru. Nail being the strongest member of their warrior race, even with his repressed power level, he stood out from amongst the rest. Arriving at Guru's place, Vegeta landed and waited for Nail to greet them. As he came out from the housing, he spoke with a tone of authority. "Who are you, and why have you come to our planet?" Vegeta smiled and held out his hand. "I'm here to speak with Lord Guru about the future of your world and the dangers of the frost demon known as Frieza." "Nail, let them in." Guru's voice echoed inside everyone's heads. Vegeta smiled and was let in. They stood next to Guru, the giant Namekian sage, before introducing themselves. "So what have you come to say about our world's fate?" Guru asked with a solemn tone. Vegeta then went into a lengthy explanation. The one known as Frieza from the Frost Demon race has this planet on his conquer listings. Sooner or later, his people will come to this planet and either enslave or wipe out your entire planet to steal it from your people. Frieza runs the Frost Demon Empire, and its main army is the Planetary Trade Organization. The PTO make their living by selling planets that they've conquered to the highest bidder. Vegeta then took a breath to let his words sink in. After giving them time to digest the information, Vegeta then stated, "Frieda's approximately 21 times stronger than my highest Ki output." This time, both Guru and Nail were thoroughly shocked. They instantly understood the seriousness of the matter. Vegeta was the strongest person on the planet right now, and if this Frieza knew of them, then their planet was truly in danger. "So why have you come here?" Guru asked. "To help and receive help in return," Vegeta said, crossing his arms. "Oh, what is it that you are in need of?" Guru asked again. "First, I would like you to unlock our potentials. Second, I want to use the Dragon Balls, if that is all right with you." Vegeta answered. "Very well, Nail, go gather the Dragon Balls from village elders," Guru ordered. "Yes, Lord Guru." Nail put his hands together and bowed slightly before leaving. Vegeta was first. Guru places his hand on top of his head and said, "Interesting. You can use magic, and you have prepared for this event well. I must congratulate you. I have never seen such a wellspring of dormant potential in my life." Vegeta suddenly felt his body beginning to boil. His whole body felt hot, and his tail was in an irritable state. He could feel an explosion of ki in his core that raged throughout his body with wild dominance. Only for a slight moment, a sliver of golden aura could be seen coming from his body. Vegeta laughed as he felt his power level reach 6,304,000 and was still climbing slowly. Thanks to the intensive training, Vegeta's gain was far higher than the ones Krillin and Gohan received. The initial boost was a 13.3 times boost. He also gained some comprehension towards spell-making from Guru through telepathic means. Raditz was next. He too felt his body go through a similar experience as Vegeta. After the initial jump was over, 5,100,000 was Raditz's new power level, making his boost a 10.1 times jump from the get-go. Lastly, Nappa's new PL was 4,080,000, making his potential boost a 9.7 times gain. Vegeta was impressed by Guru's power and decided to use a wish just for him. Vegeta thought that his abilities and powers shouldn't be lost at any cost. After waiting a while and spending some time to adjust to their new strength, Nail returned with the Dragon Balls. After summoning Purunga, Raditz and Nappa were stunned. Nail, being their interpreter, turned to Vegeta and asked, "What are wishes?" Vegeta pulled out a piece of paper that had the words, "Vanity Wish List. Grant the Namekians, Guru from Namek, and Kami from Earth Eternal Youth." Give them the knowledge to help the Namekian race rise to greatness and recover their lost strength and position in the universe again. With this wish made, Vegeta empowered the Namekians and made their dragons stronger so it could better grant his wishes. When any Saiyan species mates with another humanoid race, their spouses will become pure-blooded Saiyamen. 3. Ensure the safe and healthy births of Trunks, Bra, Gohan, and Goten. Regardless of the change in the timeline, the souls and personalities will be the same people that they were supposed to be, whether or not they are born earlier or later. 4. For me to know a technique that would allow me to teleport to other universes. 5. For me to own a portable training room that can assist in training a Saiyan to reach their fullest potentials. The first specification, it should be in the shape of a door with a frame. 5. It should have the ability to control the time difference between inside and outside the room by a factor of 1,000 times. 5b. The room has to be able to have gravity manipulation that will always push the individual's body to higher limits, however. The gravity can also be dispelled to 1g should they not wish to train. 5c. A mental training function that can help the Saiyans train to control their Uzaru forms, meaning there has to be a constant full moon inside the training grounds. 5d. A Super Saiyan training function that utilizes an illusion able to manipulate a willing person's psyche. It illusion gives the best scenario to help trigger and inflate their feelings. It has to be given in a form of training, so the Saiyans don't rely on it completely. 5. A few hundred luxury houses fully furnished, with time-locked fridges in every one of them that has 1 trillion years' worth of food, drink. 5. Ever-growing sensu bean farms. 5j. The last specification is that anyone training inside the chamber is granted eternal youth until they exit. 6. To have 2 unbreakable scouters that can translate the language of every intelligent species' language in real time and read power levels without a limit. 7. For me to learn the language of the gods. My first wish is to make everything that is on this list a reality, Vegeta said with a grin. He didn't know if it would work, but after Nail said the words in Namekian, Vegeta smiled as his wish was granted. He quickly burned the paper into nothingness with his keki, so no one could see what he had written. Guru and Kami regained their youth and a plethora of knowledge. In return, Purunga's wishing capabilities increased, granting the rest of the wish list in succession. Vegeta received a new slick-looking scouter, and a large framed door appeared that had dragon impressions carved into its golden surface. Vegeta named the item the Timeless Training Grounds. Vegeta also gained knowledge on how to teleport to different universes, and on top of it all, he now knew the language of the gods. So whenever he felt like using the Super Dragon Balls, he could. After placing away his new items in his pocket space, Vegeta smiled, then said, "For my second and wish, you are to resurrect the parents of the Saiyan known as Raditz. First, restore his father's body and resurrect him on this planet in front of us. My third wish will be to resurrect Raditz's mother Jen in the same manner." "Vegeta?" Raditz shouted in a happy surprise. "Why did you wish for that? Why not immortality for the 3 of us?" Nappa shouted. Vegeta shook his head and said it would be pointless to ask the dragon for immortality. After all, as long as someone is equal or stronger than the maker of these Dragon Balls, then they can simply bypass the wish and kill us anyway. The dragon's eyes glowed as he said, "It shall be done," before vanishing off into the horizon. 2 clueless and recently revived Saiyans now stared at Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. Raditz suddenly felt his mother glomp onto him and started crying into his chest. "I don't know how this is possible, but I'm so glad that I get to see my little Raditz again," Jaina said as she smothered her son. "Not so little anymore, Mum." Raditz chuckled as he hugged her back. How? How is any of this possible?" Bardock questioned as he touched his face. "Perhaps I could explain," Vegeta spoke up. "Pence!" Ginny and Bardock shouted in surprise. "It's King now." "My father is dead," Vegeta said while shrugging his shoulders. Bardock was taken through a loop as Vegeta explained what had happened and how they were resurrected. Bardock walked up to Vegeta and gave a Saiyan salute before saying, "Thank you for looking out for my son, Lord Vegeta. But why did you wish us back instead of your own parents? Or why not all the Saiyans?" Vegeta laughed and said, "Well, Bardock, I brought you back as a wedding gift for Kakarot. He's going to be a father in a couple of years." "What?" Raditz, Bardock and Jenny shouted with shocked and exaggerated expressions. "I'm getting a grandchild." Gina quickly switched into a cheerful mode as she shouted. Vegeta let the surprise of their child getting married settle down before saying, "As for the reason I didn't bring everyone back, this is because the Namekian Dragon Balls can't. That, and I will only bring back Saiyan that are like Jaine, kind-hearted Saiyan." Vegeta then went on to explain what had happened and what his plans were for the future of the Saiyan race. Raditz walked up to his father with his mother hanging from his arm. He respected and looked up to no one more than his own father. He wanted to hear those words he hadn't heard in a long time. Bardock smiled. "You've grown stronger, son." Raditz covered his face slightly and held back his tears as he said, "Thank you, father, thank you for saying that." Bardock patted his shoulder and then said, "So what do we do now?" Vegeta tilted his head thinking, we still have another 6.5 years until Raditz was supposed to show up on Earth. So Vegeta decided to spend the next 6 years training Bardock and Genie until they rivaled everyone's power. Vegeta took them inside the Saiyan training grounds to teach them the basics of ki control. The inside of the chamber looked very similar to the hyperbolic time chamber, only it had 200,000 luxury cabins that were made of indestructible materials. Vegeta made sure to keep the time linear with it outside world, as he didn't want to get too far ahead of Goku. It would take too long to train him up if he did so. He wanted a fight with Goku on an equal stage. After all, Vegeta from the original canon said it best, Kakarot can push him to newer heights better than anyone else. Vegeta even brought in Nail as a guest. He decided to show his appreciation by allowing him to train here as well. Although the Namekian didn't have the luxury of a Zenkai boost or Saiyan physiology, the gravity training proved to be useful for him as well, and the combat training helped Nail improve drastically. With Nail's help, they trained up the two Saiyans Bardock and Junie, and the Namekian grew alongside them for 6 years. Back on Earth, things played out similar to the original canon, the only difference being that Goku tried to revive his grandfather with the Dragon Balls a year after training with Roshi. Unfortunately, he couldn't revive those who had been dead longer than a year. Not to mention, Grandpa Gohan had told Goku himself that he didn't want to be wished back when they met at Baba's. Since Goku never lost his tail and had a method to control it, he defeated Roshi by turning into a great ape at the World Martial Arts Tournament. Once he looked down and smiled at his master, Goku patted Roshi on his head, saying only 2 words, "I win." Thanks to this, the moon wasn't destroyed, and Goku still came back to the tournament for more, because he viewed using his Uzaru form as cheating. As time passed, the King Piccolo incident happened, Krillin died, Goku went off after the killer, and events followed the normal route. Eventually, Goku met with Kami and trained with him as well. As a bonus, Kami informed him that he could wish back his grandfather since he trained with him and gained some strength of his own. Eventually, he met Piccolo at the World Martial Arts Tournament and agreed to marry Chi-Chi, once again shocking everyone in the crowd. After defeating Piccolo in the tournament, he left with his wife to live a peaceful life in the mountains. After getting married, Goku and Chi-Chi had a wondrous honeymoon when they were consummating their love on their first night together. After a few days, Chi-Chi suddenly grew a tail and went through a Dragon Wish-induced transformation, becoming a pure-blooded Saiyan in the process. Strangely enough, Chi-Chi didn't seem to mind. She felt stronger than ever before and even got more ferocious in bed. They spent a few weeks together and continued to mate like animals. After a few more days had passed, Goku decided to take Chi-Chi to go see Bulma. Thanks to being resurrected at the prospect of seeing his great-grandchild Grandpa Gohan was around for Goku's marriage. When he finally saw Chi-Chi and Goku again, the elder informed Goku that girls growing tails after doing the deed isn't normal. Goku began to worry about Chi-Chi's health. However, Grandpa Gohan was able to calm him down as he said, "It might not necessarily be a bad thing. How about you head over to the smart girl Bulma's house and get her a checkup for Chi-Chi?" The next thing he knew, Goku was sitting down in Dr. Brief's lab when Bulma came wearing a lab coat, carrying a clipboard with some papers attached to them. Chi-Chi's face was bright red and showed a happy expression. "Congratulations, Goku, you're going to be a father," Bulma said with a jealous grin. Goku smiled and jumped up in joy. His eyes widened and his hands wrapped around Chi-Chi's waist, gently lifting her as if he were worried about using too much strength. Goku then sat her down and placed his ear on her stomach. "Really? I'm going to be a dad? Grandpa says you can hear the heartbeat." Bulma sighed and let out a genuinely happy expression. "Yes, Goku, Chi-Chi is pregnant, and it takes a while for the heart to form." Goku was shaking with nerves when he asked, "Then about Chi-Chi's condition?" "Well, she's perfectly healthy. The only difference seems that her genetic code has somehow added an entirely new layer of genomes. This isn't a mutation, rather a transformation," Bulma said, reading off her findings. "So, she's okay?" Goku asked again. "Better than okay, she's more than human now. Her blood shares a few similar markers to your own," Bulma said, scratching her head, wondering how this was possible. Goku hugged her and shouted, "Thank you, Bulma. I don't know how to repay you." "All right, let me down. You're welcome." Goku let her go. As she fixed her hair, Bulma thought of something and said, "If you want to thank me, you could introduce me to that Yamcha guy Krillin trains with." Goku rubbed the back of his head. "I don't know, Bulma. That guy is literally afraid of women. He won't go near them." Bulma sighed. "I need a boyfriend. I've been cooped up in Dad's lab too long." "Ha! You love it!" Dr. Briefs shouted in the distance. The tech Vegeta left them to keep them quite busy, however. Bulma had all but forgotten Vegeta, and had almost no idea that he was responsible for all her father's new projects. She just assumed it was something her father made. Bulma smiled at her father's truthful accusation. "Yeah, I do." Turning back to Goku, Bulma took on a serious expression and said, "You should give me a call when he is about to be born, just in case there are any complications." Goku nodded his head and thanked her again before leaving. After returning home, the timeline continued on like normal until Gohan had been born. Another difference was Bulma was there and helped them choose the name. As Goku and Chi-Chi were trying to think of one, she saw how much Gohan got along with his grandpa. "How about Gohan Jr.?" Bulma said, with a smile on her face. The Ox King smiled and said, "It would be an honor." Baby Gohan laughed at the name. Goku, seeing this, picked him up and said, "Do you like that, huh, Gohan?" "Ahaha." Baby Gohan laughed. "I guess it's decided then," Chi-Chi said with a loving smile on her face. The years passed, and Gohan turned 5. Although he had plans to be a scholar, he often snuck off to train with his grandpa. After hearing his father was the strongest person on the planet, his Saiyan blood began to boil at the prospect of surpassing him. Gohan loved studying, and his mother, but aspired to be strong like his father, even if that meant going against his mother's wishes. So not even Chi-Chi could stop him from learning the basics of martial arts. Grandpa Gohan enjoyed his time with his grandchild and even made a game of sneaking around Chi-Chi to train. Goku eventually received a call from Krillin, who set up a party to meet up. This time Chi-Chi came as well. While this was all happening, a brainwashed Turles landed on Earth. Because of his encounter with the mysterious purple man, Turles never discovered the Tree of Might, and his power stagnated at one. After landing on Earth, he used his scouter and located Piccolo. Like the original timeline, Turles said, "A Namekian? What's one doing way out here?" The two were about to fight it out when his scouter beeped. "Oh, so there you are? You're a lucky one, Green Man. You get to live today." As he turned around, Turles launched a sneak attack, sending a blast out at Piccolo, not caring whether or not he was dead. Laughing, Turles flew off towards Kame House Island, unaware that what he killed was one of Piccolo's split bodies. When he arrived, people were shocked at the resemblance between him and Goku. Krillin got too close to his tail, and as a result was sent flying into the side of the house, and while Turles said, "Of course there is a resemblance, I am his uncle, after all." "But you're too young," Bulma shouted as she hid inside the house. "Saiyans do not age until we grow very old. We keep our youthful appearance as long as we continue to train and fight." Turles looked to Goku and said, "Now are you going to join me, Kakarot, or am I going to have to get rough with you?" Humph! I'm Goku, not this Kakarot. I don't care if I am a Saiyan. I won't help you kill the people of his world. Goku raised his fist to fight, but all of a sudden, Turles moved faster than he could see and punched Goku in the gut so hard that it caused him to keel over and barf up blood and saliva. Turles then grabbed Gohan and slapped Chi-Chi away, enraging Goku and Gohan. Both their energies flared, making Turles smile. Interesting, he said, looking at Gohan's power. Power level of 100 donned, grabbing Gohan's tail. All of Infant Saiyan's fight left him as his power level dropped down to 300, and you can hide your power level 50-1, so weak. Author note, Goku still has his tail, so I had to decide how much of a boost it gives. So I chose something modest. It gives them a quarter of their full power as a bonus. Goku's PL was 450 machine at the Raditz saga, so with a 1.25 times boost, Goku's power makes sense. Holding his finger up to Gohan's head and charging up his Korin, Turles smiled and said, "You have 1 week to kill all the Earthlings on this planet. If you fail, your son will pay the price." Goku's temper dropped. He gripped his fist to the point blood dripped from his palm. As he watched his son being carried off by the threat of death, Goku quickly went to pick up Chi-Chi and pulled out his last 2 senzu beans. After feeding them to his wife and Krillin, he felt his wife's power surge a bit. Chi-Chi actually got a Zenkai boost and got a little stronger, but not by much. Her power went from 145 to 380. Seeing how the situation was going, Piccolo finally made his appearance. Since Krillin was all healed up and the bald martial artist knew Bulma was still single, he tried to impress her by shaking off his fear and offering to go along as well. "Good, we'll take all the help we can get." Goku paused, then looked to his wife. "Chi-Chi, I'll bring Gohan back. I promise." Chi-Chi was still crying when she nodded her head and felt Goku hug her. "If you're done now, I'd like to get my revenge," Piccolo said with a more than unpleased expression. Goku sighed and called his Nimbus. Hopping onto it, Krillin jumped on his shoulders and said, "Sorry, Goku, I can't stand on it and want to preserve my energy." "Just hold on tight," Goku said as they took off. After a few minutes of flying, they settled on the idea of grabbing his tail. "Let's just hope he hasn't trained out that weakness yet," Krillin said as he thought of a plan. "How about we solar flare him then grab his tail?" Krillin said, placing his finger up. "Worth a shot," Goku said, as they finally reached their destination. Goku, Krillin, and Piccolo jumped into combat without hesitating. Gohan was unconscious, and inside Turles' space pod, was a good distance away from the fight. Once Goku saw that his son was alive, he clenched his fist at Raditz and demanded that he hand over his son. Krillin sat back and waited for the perfect chance to use the solar flare technique, while Piccolo and Goku teamed up to take down Turles. The three went back and forward, and it all played out similarly to the original canon, right up until Goku charged up a full-powered Super Kamehameha and chased Turles with it. The moment he deflected it, Krillin popped out and used the solar flare to blind Turles. As the possessed Saiyan lost his sight, he swung out wildly, hitting Krillin and sending him flying into a tree and knocking him out with severe injuries. Goku grabbed his tail and held him down. Just like how the original event played out, Goku let go after hearing Turles beg for forgiveness and play the "I'm your uncle" card. After the two ended up taking another beating, Gohan had snapped and broke out of the space pod. This time his power level was with a flying head, but he smashed into Turles while shouting, "Don't hurt my daddy." Turles was severely weakened from the blow. Goku took the chance to hold him in a full-body grapple, and Piccolo took the chance to finish charging his special beam cannon. Years earlier on Namek, Vegeta continued to train the two new Saiyans that he had revived. After the first 2 years, Bardock and Junior had grown by leaps and bounds. The timeless training grounds truly helped them progress quickly. Vegeta had ordered Nappa and Raditz to take it easy and build up their S-cells. Only then would they have a good chance of unlocking the Super Saiyan form. Vegeta made sure to take it easy with his training as well. However, during the final year, Vegeta brutalized both Bardock and Gen every day. There wasn't a single second that they weren't at death's door, and every time they felt the cold touch of death's embrace, Vegeta healed them up and started the process all over again. Once they were able to defend themselves, Nappa and Reddits took over their training while Vegeta walked off to focus on becoming a Super Saiyan. He focused on the things that he cared about: Bulma, his future children, and his friends and rivals. Then he imaged his worst fears, taking them from him. Then, in popped the image of Moro, the one who would defeat both Goku and Vegeta after the Tournament of Power. The training grounds began to alter Vegeta's state of mind, causing it to go berserk with terrifying images and experiences. Everyone stopped their training because they could feel Vegeta's power level skyrocketing. His aura pierced into the sky as he focused all of the energy into his spine. As he felt his tail tingle, a golden aura erupted as Vegeta let out a long-winded scream. His hair turned to gold, and his eyes turned greenish-blue. Vegeta smiled and felt the sheer power of the first Super Saiyan form flowing through him. "Vegeta? That form?" Bardock managed to speak out while the rest mumbled while pointing at Vegeta. "I have ascended to the first plateau. I, Vegeta, king of all Saiyans, have become a Super Saiyan at long last." Vegeta felt that the realm was helping him acclimate to the new form. The Saiyan training grounds exuded a strange kind of invisible pressure that could keep the transformation from dispelling due to lack of focus, allowing the practitioner to sustain the transformation until they get used to it. Vegeta powered down and turned it back on. Over and over again, he repeated this until he could finally do it at will. "What did you mean by the first step?" Raditz asked. "Super Saiyan isn't our final form. I feel a higher form of it exists beyond the Super Saiyan state, a Super Saiyan 2, maybe even a third and a fourth." Everyone was shocked at the idea of furthering the immense power they already felt. "It appears that the Super Saiyan transformation carries a 50 times multiplier to all my abilities," Vegeta informed as he waved his hand, causing a windstorm to pass over the terrain. "Does this mean you can defeat Frieza now?" Nappa asked. Vegeta grinned and answered, "With ease." He then turned to the sky and said, "But for now it's time to go to Earth and train up Kakarot." Bardock, Jenny and Raditz smiled and thanked Vegeta with a sauté. Nodding his head in approval, the Saiyans left the training grounds. However, before they left, Vegeta took the two new Saiyans to Guru to unlock their potential. Guru's body had slimmed down but was still large. He stood at 8 feet tall and sat in his chair with renewed vigor. After getting Bardock's and Jiren's hidden potential unearthed, Vegeta threw them into the training grounds again and let them continue to train by themselves for another 2 years inside, and only 2 days outside. Vegeta decided on what he would wish for while he waited. Before leaving Namek, Vegeta made another 3 wishes. After hearing how Vegeta cheated the dragon last time, Guru placed a few more restrictions on the Dragon Balls that would prevent that from happening again in the future. It was almost the same thing as infinite wishes, so to keep the dragon from being exploited by evil people in that manner, Guru made sure that his new rules would stop it from happening. Acting like a grumpy old man, Vegeta clicked his teeth and burned his new wish list. They summoned the dragon, and Nail once again helped him translate. The first wish was that he create a habitual planet that is perfectly suited to both the habitation and evolution of the Saiyan race, and to do it by replacing the planet Venus in Earth's solar system, without disrupting the flow of the other planet's orbit of the Sun. The second one was to form a habitable moon around Venus that grows nothing but sensu beans. The moon has to be positioned to give the planet a perfect wobble, so that it has 4 seasons. The third is that both the planet and moon would come fully stocked with empty cities, furnishing technology that matches the Galactic Patrol and Planetary Trade Organization, enough vegetation and wildlife to support the entire Saiyan race. And lastly, to make it all the sustenance very delicious to their taste buds, human taste buds as well. After waiting for 2 days, the group bid farewell to the Namekians and headed back to Earth. Everyone knew power level. Vegeta, 10,000. Reddits, Bardock, 8 Tays. Nappa, 7. Vegeta smiled at their progress before teleporting everyone to Earth, only to come across a disturbing scene. Goku was currently dying on the ground with a giant hole through his chest. Turles was lying face down in a pool of his own blood, dead. Krillin was holding Goku's hand and crying, while Piccolo was standing over him with a dissatisfied expression. Even though he had achieved his lifelong goal, he gained no happiness from it. "Sorry guys, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Krillin, tell Chi-Chi I'm sorry. Take care of Gohan for me," Goku thought as he grew closer to death. Just as the lights began to dim, all of a sudden Vegeta appeared over him and cast a full heal spell. Goku opened his eyes as Piccolo jumped back in surprise. Not only did Goku just get back up completely healed, but his power level shot through the roof. Goku's original power level was 50-21, but now it had bumped up to 60-140. The Zenkai he missed out on by dying in the original timeline made him just as strong as his brother in the original canon. Krillin grabbed Goku and hugged him. "You're alive." "Who are you?" Goku asked, looking at Vegeta with a desire for combat, when all of a sudden everyone else appeared beside Vegeta. Bardock was about to call out to him, but Junie beat him to it. Jumping on Goku, she started crying again, and with Junie's strength, Goku could do nothing to peel her off. Piccolo was looking to leave when Vegeta patted his shoulder and said, "Stay a while, Namekian. We have much to talk about." "Namekian? That's the second time I've been called that today. What is a Namekian?" Piccolo questioned, feeling a sense of familiarity with the word. Vegeta smiled and said, "Yes, I just came back from your homeworld. Lovely place. A lot of kind people there, beautiful green-tinted oceans and skies, blue-colored grass, and emerald blue shrubbery. 10 out of 10 when it comes to a tourist site." Piccolo was sweating. He couldn't feel Vegeta's energy, but was unable to even budge a millimeter. "Kakarot, my baby boy," Guinea cried. "Oh, how many times do I have to say this? I'm not Kakarot guy. My name is Goku." Goku responded, trying to push his mother off of him and failing miserably. "I don't know why, but the inner Vegeta in me is getting a kick out of this situation," Vegeta thought while smiling with a satisfied grin. "Kakarot, it's us, your parents," Junie said with a hint of worry. "Parents?" Piccolo and Krillin shouted with surprise. "First we have a guy claiming to be Goku's uncle, and now his parents. What next, a long-lost brother?" Krillin said with sarcasm. Raditz coughed. I'm your older brother, Kakarot." Krillin fell over in disbelief. "Me and my big mouth." "Uncle?" Bardock walked over to inspect the body. "Well, I'll be if it isn't my little brother, Turles." Vegeta walked over and attempted to cast a spell. Zairoku, aka Revive. The recently deceased Turles had his body repaired and suddenly opened his eyes. He let out a gut-hurling scream as the hole was still in his chest. Vegeta quickly used a full heal and restored Turles to full health. Vegeta did a quick scan of Turles' body and found that his ki had dwindled to a measly 10 in power level. It appears that there are some drawbacks to reviving someone this way. "Well, since you'd kill your own nephew, I think it's best that I use that spell. Sorry, Turles, you are going to be the test subject for my newly created spell." During his time training on Namek, he just so happened to have made a spell just for such an occasion. It was created with the idea of what he should do to the Saiyans, should he ever decide to revive the Saiyan race entirely. Clean slate cleans out all negative emotions and selectively removes memories tied to them. Basic functions such as motor skills, basic living needs, intelligence, and mental maturity aren't affected. Those with higher power levels are immune to this technique. Turles suddenly went wide-eyed and fell down. "Where am I? Who are you? Who am I?" Bardock shook his head and said, "Your name is Turles, and you are a Saiyan and my little brother. It was my fault that you ended up as you have." "Brother?" Turles tilted his head, while everyone else stared at Vegeta in shock. Vegeta shook his head and said, "Bardock, you're in charge of educating your brother. Kakarot, we'll return to the lookout to talk." Vegeta then stopped as he saw Turles' scouter, and sighed before destroying it. "I don't suppose you failed to mention the Dragon Balls earlier?" Krillin gulped. "I did. Why?" Vegeta laughed. "No reason. It just means we have around a year to prepare for the arrival of Frieza. He'll come to this world and try to conquer it, and attempt to use the Dragon Balls, so he may wish for immortality. We beat this guy. How strong could he be?" Goku said, still trying to escape his mother's grasp. Vegeta laughed. Kakarot, you should know that compared to Turles, Frieza is around 12 million times stronger than his current condition. Goku gulped. Who are you guys? We're Saiyans just like you. We just don't do the whole planet conquering thing. Well, at least not anymore, Vegeta responded. Goku was surprised. So not all Saiyans are like what he said. Vegeta shook his head. No, in fact, everyone you see here has sworn off that path. Goku smiled and looked at his mother. Are you really my mum? Jean nodded her head. Why don't you remember us, Kakarot? I fell down a mountain when I was a baby and hit my head. I probably lost all my memories since then, Goku replied, shocking everyone again. So what? You're still a Saiyan? Vegeta shook his head. Deciding on putting his plans to talk with Kami on hold for the moment, he walked over to Goku and grabbed his wrist before saying, You know what? I think you should come with me for a while. With a wave of his hand, Vegeta summoned his timeless training grounds from his pocket space. He then set the time to the time difference to be to the full 1,000 times faster inside, meaning one day was 95 days short of 3 years. Vegeta then pulled Goku inside to begin his training. Out of everything Vegeta wanted to do in his life, only making Bulma his woman was greater than his desire was to train Goku up and fight him. Goku was a prodigy, no doubt. He was always able to hold on and survive until the bitter end. Even when all hope is lost, he somehow always manages to clinch victory from the jaws of defeat. Whether it is through combat or his actions mattered little to Vegeta. He acknowledges Goku as the genius he is. This is the Kakarot that Vegeta wanted to fight. This is the pure and unbelievable genius that pushed Vegeta to take the role of his only true rival. Goku was busy discovering the space that they entered. He could feel a heavyweight pressing down on him, grinding into his muscles and blood, almost like it was being purified from this inside out. Goku jumped around and explored the villas. He still had his tail, so the pure-hearted Saiyan reminded Vegeta of a hyperactive monkey. Wow! So much food! So many senzu beans! These houses are pretty nice. Hey, where did you pull that door out of? Why does this place remind me of the Room of Spirit and Time? Kakarot, do you want to train or not? Vegeta said slightly, losing his temper. Goku grinned and ran back to Vegeta. I'd rather just fight you first. Vegeta laughed and looked at him like he was an imbecile. Remember what? Goku asked, standing in his natural fighting pose. Vegeta disappeared and a beam of ki blasted a huge hole through Goku's back as he appeared behind him. Goku fell down and almost died again before Vegeta cast a full heal spell on his body. You asked for this, Vegeta said with a confident smug. Goku popped back up and screamed out, I died. No, but you came close. Tell me, Kakarot, do you feel stronger? Vegeta said, grinning at Goku. Goku jumped back up and checked his body. Yeah, about 2 to 3 times stronger than before, if I had to guess. That is one of the greatest traits of our kind. Never forget how Zenkai boosts work. Vegeta commented before going into a lengthy explanation of Saiyan physiology. Wow, so much stuff in my life makes sense now. Goku beamed, seeming to not care that he almost just died by Vegeta's hand. Vegeta smiled and said, Listen up, I will train you here until you can provide me with a decent challenge. Goku smiled and said, Well then, show me your full strength. Vegeta laughed. Very well. Releasing his ki to its fullest potential, Goku was sent rolling around backward like a rag in the wind. Vegeta didn't hold back as he turned into a Super Saiyan, shocking the already stunned Goku even more. And this is a Super Saiyan transformation. It multiplies all your abilities by 50 times your base form's limit. Goku was stunned. He had always thought he was on top of Mount Fuji, but now he learned that he was only standing on an anthill. Vegeta powered down and said, So are you scared? Goku was shaking, but not out of fear, but sheer excitement. To think that by training we can reach such stages, I can't wait. Fight me, Vegeta, Goku said while bravely getting back into his stance. Prepare to experience hell, Kakarot. Vegeta dashed forward after casting Re-Heal on Goku. After the first day, every one of Goku's allies had appeared. Bulma, Chi-Chi, Roshi, Tien, Chiatsu, Krillin, even Yamcha had come. It appeared he still ended up becoming Master Roshi's student, but he didn't have any luck striking up a conversation with Bulma. His fear of women was still very much present. Chi-Chi was bombarded by the news of Goku having so many living relatives. His parents were more surprised by the fact that Chi-Chi was a Saiyan. I don't know about this myself. One day I was human. Then after, Chi-Chi paused. You know. She lifted her pinky. I suddenly grew a tail. All the Saiyans were surprised. They didn't know it was because of the wish Vegeta had made, so they all thought it was merely a biological reaction to Saiyans mating with humans. Bulma chimed in. Yeah, we don't know what the cause was, but when Chi-Chi got pregnant, her entire body went through a cellular metamorphosis. Junni walked around in circles and saw that Chi-Chi's power level was only around 350. It was apparently Chi-Chi didn't train, but Junni didn't care about that. She was inspecting her daughter-in-law with a happy expression. I can't believe our Goku managed to marry such a pretty girl. Ginny looked over to her adorable grandson and smiled before saying, Raditz, you should find a wife and give us some grandkids too. Raditz could only respond with a darkened complexion and a sweat drop falling from his brow. Back on Mount Paozu, Raditz stood next to Goku and smiled awkwardly as he watched Chi-Chi let Ginny hug her grandson with affection. You're my grandma? Gohan said, with a smile on his face. Yep, that's your grandpa Bardock. Jane carried him over to Bardock. Hey, kid! Bardock patted him on the head. I see your hair looks like a mix of more like Ginny's and your mother's, but you've got your father's eyes, though. Chi-Chi smiled as she watched Gohan greeting his family. This is your Uncle Raditz, that's your grand-uncle Turles. Gohan showed a bit of fear and grabbed on tightly to Ginny's arm. Seeing his reaction, Ginny smiled and tried to calm him down by saying King Vegeta wiped his memories so he could try to live a good life again. So he doesn't remember anything about what he did early. Besides, all his strength is gone. Even your mummy could beat her up. Gohan hid his face in his grandmother's shoulder when Raditz gave him a harsh stare. With a grunt, Raditz patted him on the head before saying, Listen up, kid. You're a Saiyan. You should never show fear to any opponent, only a desire to overcome them in combat. Suddenly, Raditz felt a chill run down his back. Excuse me, Raditz, was it? Please don't tell my Gohan how to behave. I'm raising him in the hopes he becomes a scholar, not a fighter. Raditz looked at Chi-Chi and thought, why does she scare me? She only has a power level of 350 or so. So where is Goku now? Chi-Chi asked. Kakarot is training with the king right now, Genie said, holding Gohan up on her arm. Well, then we'll wait right here until he returns, Chi-Chi said, nodding her head at Bulma. Bulma smiled and pulled out some dino capsules and made a few houses appear. Until the two came back out, all of Goku's friends had decided to set up camp outside the singular door standing in the center of a grassy field. Inside the training grounds, the two rival Saiyans continued to train together for 5.6 years, meaning 2 days had passed outside. Although they called it training, up to a certain point, it was more like a one-sided bashing. However, regardless of how badly Goku was beaten, Vegeta had to admit his martial arts and battle senses were truly top-notch. If they were of equal power level, no doubt Goku would be providing much as an excellent training partner. Goku paused in a ready position, his clothing made by Vegeta so that they were more durable and had more weight. Currently, both Goku and Vegeta were standing with 500 by Earth's gravity pressing down on them and their weighted clothing. Goku was put through a truly hellish experience. Life and death were always hanging on by a mere thread, but Goku never once let the threat of death place a shadow in his heart. Even though Vegeta pushed him to the absolute brink of death countless times, he still maintained that glare of innocence and a goofy, happy expression, because he was fighting someone strong. He had continued to grow unceasingly and without end. Goku took to the training like a sponge absorbing water. Time and time again, Goku had proven his talent for evolving and transcending his limits, and now he had surpassed Vegeta. Worthy to be my rival, Vegeta thought as he sensed Goku's care. Goku truly surprised Vegeta by almost becoming a Super Saiyan during one of their fights. Goku had only managed to hold the form for a couple of seconds, but because his body wasn't ready for it, he couldn't complete the transformation and ended up in the pseudo-Super Saiyan form. Goku went from around a power level of 900,000 to that of around 22 million as his hair spiked up and didn't change gold. For around 10 minutes, the training ground helped him sustain that form. Goku had, for the first time in their fight, managed to start hitting Vegeta back. For these 10 minutes, Goku wailed on Vegeta, who in return got stronger to fend him off. However, the damage Goku was inflicting was piling up faster than Vegeta could heal. For Vegeta to win the fight, he had to transform into a Super Saiyan before knocking Goku into oblivion. But he didn't stop there. After turning Goku's bones into powder, Vegeta used a Gallic gun blast, almost killing the Saiyan raised on Earth. Vegeta landed next to his opponent and sensed Goku's heartbeat with his Kaise, waiting for the moment he would heal him. Vegeta was so in tune with his senses that he waited to the absolute moment before Goku's heart began to flatline, giving Goku the biggest Zenkai boost of his life. Goku's newest Zenkai put him at 2.1 million, thanks to his endless stamina and tenacity. Goku had finally breached that million power level threshold. Vegeta was a slouch either. He still kept up his own training and constantly spared with Goku, and after that last Zenkai that he got from Goku's pseudo-Super Saiyan assault, it allowed Vegeta's base power to reach around 22.3 million. Vegeta also noticed that the Zenkais were powering him up less and less these days. He needed Goku in Super Saiyan form to even really start his own unique idea of training. Vegeta smiled and said, "I think we should take a short break. There is someone I wish you to meet." Vegeta then used his Zoom spell, and because he learned how to transport to another universe, he incorporated his knowledge into the spell. He could only teleport to places he's been before, but unlike the instant transmission, this one could even target anyone he designates and shift through dimensions. The spell allows him to step outside Universe 7 and reappear at the targeted location. Goku stood in front of the large elder and saw Vegeta talking kindly to the giant Namekian. After a light introduction, Guru was pleased to see a Saiyan with such a pure heart and placed his hand on Goku's head to unleash his potential. His power level shot up by 7.8 times almost instantly, giving him a power level of 14.9 million. It only started to stop growing around 22,890,000. By the time it settled down, Goku's total modifier gained by him being a 10.9 boost. Vegeta was happy with Goku's progress, more so than anyone else Vegeta had trained with. He even didn't mind the fact that Goku was slightly stronger than him right now. After all, it would only make him stronger in the end. Vegeta thanked Guru and returned to the training grounds. Vegeta spent the next few months teaching Goku how to align his soul and body. By giving Goku the same training he received on Yardrat, Goku's power jumped up in quality. Vegeta then told Goku to focus on becoming a Super Saiyan. Instead of hinting at what was needed, Vegeta coached Goku through it by telling him to focus on his anger and pull out his greatest fears. This time, Vegeta saw the training grounds at work. As Goku focused on imagining the worst-case scenario, the space around him began to blur. Suddenly, the pure-hearted Saiyan's mind was assaulted by powerful illusions so real, Goku truly believed what he saw was real. In that vision, he watched everyone he loved being killed, and he was helpless to stop the evildoer, and when he thought of the Dragon Balls, the illusionary scenario shifted focus. That mysterious, unstoppable entity that was plaguing Goku's mind destroyed the Dragon Balls. The shadowy figure then began to laugh and blame Goku for his weakness, taunting him and saying, even if you brought them back, I would make you watch all over again. Like a tidal wave and a nuclear explosion clashing, a vibrant golden ki erupted from Goku's body and flew into the heavens. Vegeta laughed. "Congratulations, Kakarot, you've become a Super Saiyan." Goku looked at his hands with a tight squeeze of his fist. The space around it lashed out. "Incredible! So much power." Goku looked to Vegeta with a huge smile. "I know you want to test it out the limits of your power, but so do I." Vegeta responded, turning into a Super Saiyan and taking his fighting pose. The two could feel their Saiyan blood screaming for the fight that they've been building up to. Vegeta started the match. Launching out first with incredible speed, he placed his elbow out and flew at Goku like a missile. Goku placed his hand out and deflected Vegeta's force to the side slightly, while the impact created a sonic boom that echoed out with shockwaves. Vegeta turned into a blur as he lowered his body to do a spinning low kick. Goku jumped up, dodging the kick by a mere inch before powering up a simple Keke blast and shooting it towards Vegeta. With a wave of his hand, Vegeta smacked the ki blast away and jumped after Goku. Their bodies turned into blurs as countless explosions made of pure kinetic energy rippled throughout the timeless training grounds. Within nanoseconds, the two fighters exchanged hundreds of blows, both of them making perfect blocks and counterattacks. Every time their fists connected, the countless shockwaves of force rumbled around them like thunder. The two seemed equal. Vegeta had already caught up to Goku's strength and was pushing his fellow Saiyan to get stronger himself. Kicks, punches, elbows, knees, grappling attempts, the two fought like a wild and instinctual beast without a care for their safety or death. "Solar flare!" Goku yelled. Vegeta shouted, "Oh, my eyes!" Goku got cocky and charged out toward him. When he was halfway there, Goku's senses screamed, "Run!" making him stop and jump back. "Virg, you almost got me there. Stop feigning weakness, Vegeta. Acting in the middle of a serious fight, really? That's playing dirty," Goku said, stomping his feet and raising his fist. Vegeta opened one eye and laughed. "Sorry, I know that stance. I wasn't going to just let you blind me." Vegeta placed his finger up and said, "Oh yeah, never forget, deception is a part of combat too." Vegeta used his instant transmission and appeared behind Goku. Only, when he went to punch, Goku's body disappeared. "When did you learn it?" Vegeta asked as Goku appeared a few feet away. Goku scratched his cheek and smiled before saying, "A little after you explained the basics of the technique." Vegeta laughed. "Excellent. You actually managed to master the second stage of instant transmission with just a few hints." "You're not mad I copied your technique?" Goku looked a little surprised. "No, this is the Kakarot I wanted to fight. You're really a martial arts genius. I have to give it to you. I may be more methodical about how I learn, but your instincts and natural talent are really out of this world." Vegeta started to store up power inside his body. Vegeta's grip caused his knuckles to crack as he said, "You really are the best person to help me grow." Vegeta wasn't lying. Goku could really help him push his power to new levels constantly. Even now, as they fought, they both started getting stronger. Goku got into the Kamehameha stance and said, "No holding back now." Vegeta used his Gallic gun and the two started powering up. With a loud shout of their attacks, vibrant colors of purple and blue smashed into each other from a distance. A cataclysmic explosion occurred at the center of the beams. The two struggled for a while and put everything they had into the attack. Vegeta and Goku refused to give up. They continued to pour all their energy into the attack until the Kamehameha and Gallic gun attacks exploded like a gargantuan bomb going off. The two waves of pressure exploded outward and shook the space around them like a massive earthquake. The buildings and land shook beneath their feet, the sky darkened, and lightning bolts shot off randomly. Goku and Vegeta jumped into the destructive remains of their Kebble blasts and punched each other's fists. The wind pressure gathered from the attack, dissipating the lingering kick from the explosion and turning the previous scene of chaos and destruction into one of tranquility. Suddenly, the two began exchanging fierce blows. Goku punched Vegeta in the side of his stomach, causing Vegeta to gasp for air. Gritting his teeth, Vegeta recovered, lifting his body back up and punching the bottom of Goku's chin with all of his strength. Gritting his teeth as well, Goku stomped his feet to the ground, keeping his body from flying off from the force of the attack. As Vegeta's punch snapped his neck upward, causing it to literally stretch before almost breaking, Goku suddenly grabbed his opponent's shoulders, and with all his strength, he slammed his head straight down on top of Vegeta's skull. Vegeta grunted and felt his whole body shake, his knees startled to wobble, and his vision grew hazy. To remain conscious, Vegeta bit his tongue, using the pain to snap him out of his woozy and his half-collapsed form. Vegeta recovered as he started placing all his weight on his toe and focused all his strength into his arm. Twisting his fist as he jumped into the punch, Vegeta landed a spinning hook into Goku's gut. Goku coughed up a mouthful air and felt weak before he shook his head, quickly snapping out of his daze. He then raised his knee in a twisting motion. Spinning around as he jumped back slightly, Goku kicked Vegeta in the side of the head, letting out a loud whap noise as the attack connected. Vegeta's body tilted over as he placed his hand on the ground and used all his strength to launch a leaping 1-2 punch into Goku's face. A fist hit the lower part of Goku's jaw, and then the second one hit him in the side of the dome. Goku's head tilted sideways as he returned a heavy punch to Vegeta's forehead, making his head snap back. Vegeta's body was pulled back by his head, and with one foot on the ground, Vegeta used all his focus to regain his form and stomp his foot back to the ground before shrinking his form with a traditional boxing peekaboo stance. Vegeta rushed into Goku's space and punched Goku in the ribs with a running right-handed uppercut. As Goku keeled over, Vegeta twisted his body and shot out his left straight. A loud pap was heard as Vegeta's fist landed dead center between Goku's eyes. Goku fought against the pain as he forced his body back and threw out his arms with open palms. Before Vegeta could move, Goku slapped Vegeta's ears with a fierce thunderclap and gripped his head before kneeing Vegeta in the kidney. Vegeta leaned forwards and jumped headfirst into Goku's chin. Goku leaned back from the damage while Vegeta landed a quick spinning back kick to his waist, sending Goku flying into the distance. As Goku was launched into the air, he saw Vegeta chasing after him with a blazing purple aura behind him. With Goku sending dozens of ki blasts at Vegeta, the Saiyan King started dodging and smacking his way through the barrage of wild and chaotically placed explosions. Vegeta shot a beam of energy through the bombardment of ki blasts, causing hundreds of tiny explosions around them to form in a progressing line. Goku then used his instant transmission technique to appear above Vegeta before stomping both his feet into Vegeta's back. Vegeta's body bounced off the ground, but he didn't stop moving. The moment he hit the ground, he threw all his weight to the side and dodged out of the way of the quickly used Kamikaze he sensed behind him. Vegeta's body disappeared and reappeared with a fierce kick to the side of Goku's face. Goku hit the ground in a similar manner while Vegeta volleyed a Big Bang barrage at Goku. Super Kamehameha, Kamehameha, Q! The two shouted, engulfing each other in a massive explosion that shook the entire realm. The two had continued to attack and beat each other down for so long, and by the time they realized they could no longer continue, they both noticed that more than 3 days had passed. With Vegeta's mana completely drained and left unable to heal, their last attack nearly ended them both. Almost all of their bones were either fractured or broken. They had severe internal bleeding, torn muscles and ligaments, countless cuts, bruises, and several dozen burn marks. Vegeta and Goku had to work together in order to crawl to the nearest house. Once they pulled their broken bodies inside, they ate a sensu bean and gained a crazy Zenkai boost in the process. After recovering from their damage, the two Saiyans went right back to training. Goku and Vegeta just didn't want to stop. They were pulling crazy amounts of progress out of each other. They were eager to see how far they could go. Deciding never to be caught without mana again, Vegeta decided to store up a large stockpile of sensus in his pocket space, and kept a spare in the pocket of his armor. Once they turned back into Super Saiyans, they grinned at each other in their traditional stances before they attacked, and started training again. After another 2 days outside Vegeta and Goku had finally returned, they almost spent 11 years inside total. When they exited the timeless training grounds, both were in the perfected Super Saiyan state. Vegeta and Goku's new base power level, 30 million in Super Saiyan form, 1.5 billion. However, once they perfected the form, they were able to pull out the full power of Super Saiyan 1 without losing their mobility and speed. Instead of the 50 times boost, both of them had a 75 times boost, making their maximum power levels of 2.250 billion. Goku and Vegeta saw the look of surprise on everyone's face. Chi-Chi, who hadn't yet learned of kids bleaching their hair as a sign of delinquency, approved of Goku's new look. In fact, Chi-Chi really liked the changes Goku went through. She couldn't stop eyeing his physique, but maybe that had to do with her new genetics. They hadn't aged at all because of the special properties of the timeless training grounds, but in response to their constant training, their bodies were way more built up before. So, while they looked young, almost slimish due to their age, both Vegeta and Goku looked like a slightly buffer version of their Super Saiyan God Red forms. Raditz and the rest of Goku's family were shocked that he had already achieved the Super Saiyan form. That and his power actually rivaled their king's. "Goku," Chi-Chi jumped into his arms and asked, "What happened to your hair?"
"Oh, this."
Goku breathed out and his hair went back to normal. "Vegeta says that it is the crystallization of ki in our blood, so our hair and eyes changed to match the golden color of a Super Saiyan's ki." Chi-Chi looked over to Vegeta and said, "Thank you for saving my husband." Vegeta smiled, seeing the tail on Chi-Chi, and said while doing his best not to laugh, "Kakarot, your woman is a Saiyan. Care to explain?" Goku rubbed the back of his head. "Well, some things happened with when Chi-Chi got pregnant. I think Bulma said her body underwent some kind of metamorphosis." "I said metamorphosis as in it added data instead of mutated," Bulma shouted in Goku's ear. Vegeta smiled. "It has been a long time since we last met, Ms. Briefs. You've grown more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. Do you remember me?" Bulma blushed hard and looked around cluelessly before pointing to herself and saying, "Ha, are you talking to me?" Vegeta nodded his head. "We met once when you were little, about 4 years old or so." Bulma was desperately trying to remember. "I sold our spaceships to your father, and he built us a new one when we first visited Earth." Bulma seemed to have thought of something and shouted, "Wait, so my father was telling the truth when he said a group of aliens visited us before." Vegeta powered down and held out his hand. "Sorry, I promised to visit, but certain circumstances prevented me from returning." Bulma blushed and shook his hand. "Say, would you like to go out for dinner sometime?" Vegeta asked, making everyone's eyes grow wide. Bulma was staring at Vegeta like he was the Prince Charming she always wished for when she nodded her head. "It's a date, then?" Vegeta smiled and played it cool. Inner Vegeta, however, not so much. "You, yes, I did it. Suck it, Yamcha." Vegeta thought as he looked over at the downtrodden appearance of Yamcha. Bulma seemed really happy. She looked Vegeta up and down and thought, "Wow, he is so my type." Vegeta smiled and said, "Well then, now that introductions are out of the way, I would like to borrow Goku for a while longer. Bardock, you're in charge of the timeless training grounds." Vegeta shrunk down. The door to it was palm-sized and tossed it to Bardock. After receiving it, Bardock turned to his daughter and said, "I hear that your son was taken as a hostage, Chi-Chi, was it?" Chi-Chi nodded her head before Bardock scolded her. "You have the physique of a Saiyan. If you want to protect your son, then you should take advantage of it and train. It would be a waste of both your son's and your own potential not to." Chi-Chi understood what he meant. When Turles took Gohan from her, it was the worst feeling in her life, to be so powerless as to not save her own child. Still, she wanted him to become a scholar rather than a fighter, and time was a big problem. However, when Vegeta explained how the training room works and that Gohan could both complete his studies and train at the same time, she brightened up. "I can tell you this, there are people out there that are even stronger than Frieza and 1,000,000 times more wicked." Everyone gulped before Vegeta continued, "So I'm going to take Goku to receive training from King Kai, a god that is above even Kami." Vegeta looked at Piccolo and Krillin. "You two are coming as well." "Oh, hey Piccolo, why are you still here?" Goku asked with a grin on his face. "I'm a prisoner, Goku, in case you hadn't noticed," Piccolo shouted as the remaining Saiyans all kept their eyes on him, especially Johnny. She was still very sore about the Namekian being the one who put a giant hole through her son's stomach. Bulma then said, "What about our date?" Vegeta laughed a little before saying, "It'll be okay. I'll be back for our date tonight. I can teleport, so it shouldn't be a problem." Vegeta gave a quick wink to Bulma and placed his hand on Krillin and Piccolo's shoulders as he teleported to Kami's lookout. Wow, he can teleport? I wonder if I can get him to teach me that trick, Bulma muttered. Kami, who appeared in the prime of his youth, smiled upon seeing Vegeta. You're a little late, aren't you? Kami announced. You know him, Kami? Goku asked. Yes, Goku. He was the first Saiyan I met, and the one I suspect is responsible for me regaining my powers. You went to Namek, didn't you, Vegeta? Ignoring Kami's question, Vegeta changed the subject and said, I'm glad you are doing better. I'm going to train in the afterlife with King Kai. Is that okay? I've already consulted King Yema, and he's agreed to let you both cross in your living bodies, although it's not like there was anything he could do to stop you. Kami replied. Vegeta nodded his head and used the magic that he learned from Kami to transport him and Goku to the afterlife. After appearing at Yema's desk, Vegeta waved his hand and said, Hello, surprising all the Oni working there. So this is the afterlife? Goku said, looking around in that same childlike wonder he was known for. You must be Vegeta and Goku, Yema said, calming himself down. We're here to receive training from King Kai, Vegeta said with a grin on his face. He knew Yema was afraid of him after the little display he put on at Earth. Even now, just standing next to powerful beings such as Vegeta and Goku freaked him out. Yes, just head down Snakeway Path, and you'll... Yema didn't even get to finish as Vegeta took off and said, Last one, there is a rotten vegetable. Cheetah, Goku shouted as he chased after him. A powerful gust of wind shot through the area, blowing the papers on Yema's desk everywhere. If they're that powerful, why would they even want King Kai to train them? Yema shook his head as he stared at Piccolo and Krillin and said, You'd better get running and don't fall off. If you do, you'll end up in hell. Krillin gulped as Piccolo grunted. They both started running along the pathway, and it would take them days to reach the end, while Vegeta and Goku had already made it more than halfway to King Kai's planet in just a few seconds. After Goku and Vegeta arrived, Goku looked around and said, What a small planet. Vegeta looked around and after agreeing with him, a short, stubby, blue-skinned man with a pair of antennae on top of his head approached them. So you two are the first Super Saiyans to be born since ancient times. King Kai said as he looked at Vegeta and Goku with some expectation. We're here to receive technique training from you, Goku said with stars in his eyes. King Kai smiled and lifted his finger as he said, I can train you too, but first you must pass my test. What is it? Fighting? A workout testing our strength, speed, understanding. Ooh, maybe a Kai test? Goku asked, full of hope. You have to make me laugh, King Kai responded. Goku fell over, while Vegeta shook his head. I go first then. Vegeta stood forward, the tension between the two rising by the second, causing the area to be hotter than imagined. Vegeta gulped as a bit of sweat dropped from his brow. What do you call a fridge that runs rampant across the universe? King Kai lifted his brow and replied, What? A feisty Frieza, Vegeta said with a pure red face. A small sweat drop appeared on the side of Goku's face. The silence was apparent. However, King Kai suddenly snorted before he broke into full-on laughter. Snorting, rolling on the ground, kicking his feet, King Kai went through the whole shebang while trying to speak through his fit of laughter. Ha ha ha! Good one! Frosty feisty Frieza. I like it. Goku was up next. Why does the eternal dragon, Shenron, always seem so grumpy?
Why?
King Kai said with a smile. Because he always loses his balls after someone uses him up, Goku said, waiting for the laughter. Like clockwork, King Kai started busting up. Okay, that one was a little dirty, but I'll teach you too. Before we begin, can I ask how long it will take for Frieza to reach Earth? Vegeta asked. King Kai's antenna moved around as he used his senses to locate Frieza, about 6.5 months. Since Goku and Vegeta were so powerful, they could skip the gravity training session and skip straight into the technique training. Later that night, Vegeta had gotten ready for his date. He used his instant transmission and reappeared at Capsule Corp. Vegeta straightened his cuffs as walked up to the front door and knocked, making sure to shower and put on a nice suit. Vegeta looked rather nice thanks to his previous life's fashion sense. As Vegeta was checking out and patting his hair using the window's reflection, the door opened, revealing a smiling Panchi. She looked Vegeta up and down with an appreciative expression before she said, "It's been a long time. I can't believe that little boy who came here all those years ago became a man, and such a handsome one, too." Vegeta smiled in response when he heard Bulma shout, "Mum, stop hitting on my date." Vegeta caught a glimpse of his future wife. Her hair was cut short, around ear length, with a long 5-3 split for her top and bangs, while the back of her head was trimmed down to her nape in a V-shaped pattern. Einen picture Faye Valentine's hairstyle from Cowboy Bebop. She wore a beautiful black one-piece dress that had only one shoulder strap, black stockings, and black high heels. Her lips were glossed and she wore 2 pearl-shaped earrings that accented her eyes. Vegeta felt a little flushed as he stared at her. "So where do you want to go?" Vegeta asked, holding out his hand. Dinner sounds nice. I know you're not from around here, so I picked a place." Bulma came out and placed her arm around his elbow. Vegeta picked her up like a princess and said, "We can fly there, just give me directions." Bulma's face was beet red as she managed to mumble out the directions. After arriving at a fancy and expensive restaurant, Vegeta made sure to eat a senzu bean so that could curb his Saiyan appetite and eat like a normal human. They got a seat and ordered their meals. They were both a bit nervous, so they ate for a few minutes in silence before Bulma decided to ask her suitor a little about himself. "So, the Saiyan race." "Yeah, what about them?" Vegeta responded in a lackluster tone. "Tell me a bit about yourself. I know Goku was sent to Earth to save him from the destruction of your planet, but I don't know anything about you," Bulma said, eating a piece of beef steak. Vegeta leaned his head and thought of his words carefully. "The Saiyan race is a warrior race. We are born with natural combative physiques and are battle-prone from birth. A very long time ago, during my race's primitive age, our species existed as Uzarus, giant apes." Bulma gulped, remembering Goku's transformation during the full moon. "So humans were regular-sized savage apes, and you guys were—" Vegeta laughed. "Savage apes. Similar to how Earthing's primitive ancestors used to be. That's a good analogy. Maybe it's why our species can mate. We evolved from similar species." Bulma blushed a bit, but continued to listen on with a very intrigued expression. "Well, as you said, like all evolving beings, some Saiyans changed their natures to suit a different path. An offshoot was born that ultimately took over the whole planet." Vegeta took a bite of his meal. Some Saiyans managed to surpass their savage instincts and eventually tried to change the ways of the remaining Saiyans. Vegeta sighed. "Unable to fend off the more savage Saiyans, our original planet was lost in a great war." Bulma's eyes widened. "They destroyed their own planet. A legendary being was born that couldn't control his energy. Once his power surpassed his control, he exploded, taking the planet with them. Vegeta thought that the legendary Super Saiyan was the one responsible for destroying their original home planet. That's a scary thought, a being powerful enough to destroy an entire planet, Bulma said before taking a sip of her wine. Vegeta chuckled at the thought. She didn't know that he could easily destroy planets. Fortunately, not all of the Saiyans died. They managed to migrate to another planet and took it over. Took over? Bulma lifted a brow. Conquered, like I said, primitive. I'm sure you people have many wars and fought over living space as well, Vegeta countered. Bulma nodded her head. True. Continuing, Vegeta took a bite of his dino steak before saying, Saiyans continued to evolve into a somewhat advanced society until the appearance of the PTO's leader, King Cold, took notice of this and enslaved our entire race. Since then, the Saiyans have been forced to work on their behalf and conquer planets before selling them to the highest bidders. All profits are given to the Frost Demon species. Vegeta ended up giving her a brief explanation of what the Planetary Trade Organization was like. My story begins with the death of my father. He was foolish and untalented king. He placed his own needs above his people, and even went as so far as to try and fool a god of destruction who was testing him. God of destruction? Bulma tilted her head. Really powerful being, a real god. He commissioned my father to, and I'm not joking when I say this, obtain and hand over the universe's most comfortable pillar, Vegeta said with a serious expression. Bulma felt herself tilt as she almost fell over. Really? A pillow? Vegeta laughed at Bulma's over-the-top reaction and said, Beerus is a really vain being. Give him some good food and a place to nap, and he's a happy guy. Show him the respect he deserves, and he'll look more fondly upon you. Vegeta placed his fork down. The pillow wasn't the important part of Beerus's test. The fact of the matter was that because of my father's inflated pride and arrogance, he thought that he could fool the god of destruction by switching out the pillows for a fake. Vegeta paused and looked at Bulma and pointed his fork at her. Now, if you were an all-powerful god like that, and someone decides to try and not only disrespect you but cheat you, what would you do? Bulma sighed. Seeing that she already knew the answer, Vegeta said, Yep, that's exactly it. Beerus, who might have seen a little potential in the Saiyan race, the same Beerus who could have easily got Frieza off our backs, lost interest in our species because of my father's actions. Thus, with a few words from his lips to Frieza's ears, our planet went boom. Bulma looked a little down and then asked, So what does a god of destruction do? They're kind of like gardeners that get rid of universal weeds. Or at least they are supposed to be. Ours is a bit lazy. Vegeta pointed his hand to his chin, making sure he used the right words. Think of planets that are so evil, so corrupt, and beyond saving, they exist out there in the infinite vacuum of space. So, in order for those evil beings not to infect the rest of the galaxy with their filth, they get destroyed by the god of destruction. Then what about this Frieza guy? Why was he allowed to run rampant? Bulma questioned. Usually he would. Those who cause a whole lot of mass destruction get dealt with as well, Vegeta answered, taking a bite of his dinosaur tail steak. But this Frieza guy should be destroyed, right? According to you, he destroys planets left and right. Why hasn't this Beerus killed him? Bulma added,
That's why I said usually.
Frieza isn't just destroying planets, he's amassing powerful people, which raises this universe's mortal level. This is why Beerus puts up with him. Heck, he even lazes off sometimes, while he makes Frieza take out some planets on his to-destroy list. Vegeta then realized he would have to explain what the mortal level was, and why it was important. After hearing about the 12 universes and Xeno-sama, Bulma shivered before asking, Curious, do you know what ranking we are among the 12 universes? Vegeta smiled and said, Third from the bottom, I think? Bulma gulped. Isn't that bad? Vegeta laughed. I think we have plenty of time to raise our mortal level, especially now that there is a Super Saiyan on the scene. I have some plans to raise the mortal level drastically over the next few years. One being the establishment of my kingdom planet in the Galactic Patrol. You have a new planet? Bulma asked. Vegeta grinned. Yeah, and your Earth's astronomers will be freaking out about it in a few days. I can see the headline now. Mysterious new planet appears. Bulma lifted her brow as she took a sip of her wine. Vegeta smiled and said, I think I got a little off track. Bulma smiled and replied, Interesting conversations tend to do that, and the good company helps as well. Vegeta smiled. Anyways, after the destruction of our planet, I realized Frieza was the one who did it, and left Earth to pick up Kakarot. However, when I got here, I could tell that the warriors of this world could suppress their energy. Vegeta then gave Bulma a look over. I was also impressed with the dino capsules. We don't even have something like that in space. I asked where we could find the maker of the tech, and the rest is history. I went to your place to build a new spaceship, while Kakarot stayed here where it was safe and peaceful. We went on to train and fight against the PTO. Why didn't you take Goku with you? Bulma flashed, because how Vegeta looked at her. Vegeta smiled. This world was a better environment for him. We could make him strong, but this world taught him peace and control. While we went to train and fight in space, Earth nurtured one of the most talented martial artists to ever exist. Bulma smiled, kind of a fan of Goku. Respect is more like it. Most Saiyans don't find the pure joy in the fight like he does. They use it for darker means. Kakarot is pure-hearted. I don't sense an ounce of darkness in his being. Though he's a little dumb, Bulma laughed. Vegeta joined her with a chuckle of his own before responding, Yep, can't deny that one. The two continued to talk about various things throughout the night. After Bulma paid the bill, making Vegeta wince a bit, he smiled and said, "I'll pay you back." Bulma smiled. "Real gentleman, aren't you?" Vegeta laughed. "I'll pay you back, and then some." Grabbing hold of Bulma, he grinned before saying, "In fact, I'll pay you back right now." He then teleported her to the new moon of planet Salada. There was lush green foliage everywhere, and a powerful river that flowed all across the surface of the moon into two large bodies of fresh water. Entire forests were filled with senzu bean stalks, and various mammals and animals roamed the moon's surface. There were entire cities built and fully furnished, but had no residents yet. Vegeta held Bulma close to him and smiled as he saw the look of fascination on her face. "I used the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish for this planet and moon to take the place of Venus in this solar system. We're on the moon, by the way. Think I'll name it Luna." Bulma looked up to see the massive blue and green planet Salada. "Can we go there?" Vegeta smiled. "Can you handle 20 times Earth's normal gravity?" Bulma shook her head no. Vegeta gave a chuckle before saying, "This is why I made the moon habitual as well. It's smaller, closer to Earth's size. Humans and Saiyans can coexist here, and not to mention that it would be a great place for Saiyan women to birth their children. I don't want to have them placed in nurturing chambers like the old Saiyan kingdom." Bulma smiled as she looked at the toned corners of Vegeta's jaw. She couldn't help but stare at his lips. Vegeta then looked at Bulma and smiled before he kissed her. Bulma's eyes widened in surprise. Vegeta made sure to be gentle and released her slowly. He kept his hand on hers and said, "Didn't want this date to end without letting you know how I'm interested in you. I definitely want to do this again." Bulma nodded her head and stared at Vegeta with a dazed expression. Vegeta teleported them back to her house and then said, "Pick you up tomorrow night. Same time?" Bulma nodded her head as she went back inside with a cheerful expression. Vegeta then teleported back to King Kai's to get some sleep and begin training again. The next day went by and the two Saiyans continued to make progress in their training. King Kai couldn't believe how talented they were. Later that night, Vegeta took Bulma out on another date and ended up with a few more kisses at the end. The week passed in a flash. Krillin and Piccolo arrived, and their power level had grown over the journey, from Krillin's original 2020 power level to 780. And from Piccolo's original 4025 power level to 900. The two looked worn and tired by the time they reached King Kai's planet, and after being introduced to the heavier gravity, they both collapsed in the struggle to stand up. Goku and Vegeta continued to train, while the other two focused on acclimating to the higher gravity. King Kai agreed to train Krillin because he made him laugh, but Piccolo couldn't think of a joke to save his life. After struggling for days, Vegeta finally took pity on the poor Namekian and offered him a hand, only if he gave up on wanting to conquer Earth. Piccolo grinned and said, "Why should I?" Vegeta smiled and answered him honestly, "Because you're wasting your potential, and you and I both know you can surpass your father in talent. That darkness that Kami got rid of was the biggest mistake of his life. Instead of conquering his inner demons, he split himself and excommunicated his darker half, when he should have trained to conquer it. Now tell me, Namekian, can you conquer the darkness in your heart and surpass your predecessor?" Piccolo frowned. Vegeta didn't care what he thought about him as he said, "I heard that there's something called a super Namekian. In fact, an elder I know is one. His name is Guru. Although easier for the Dragon Clan, both clans of your species can access this form through achieving a higher state of consciousness." Piccolo tilted his head in surprise. However, that the thing that keeps them from evolving past this point is that they all give in to the darkness in their hearts. Dragon sages such as Guru are passive in nature, making it easier to become a super Namekian at the cost of battle power. Vegeta pointed to Piccolo's chest. "You are of the warrior clan. If you can win against that darkness inside of yourself, I'm sure you can even surpass the super Namekians in power." To be honest, Vegeta was really playing a guessing game here. He didn't know if this was true, and it was only based on a theory he had about the Namekian species. For one, he couldn't explain why Kami and King Piccolo were so weak. He figured there must have been a backlash to failing the Super Namekian transformation, greatly weakening the two. His second big hint was that a singular Namekian has to be the strongest entity in existence. Why? Because the Super Dragon Balls were capable of reversing Xeno-Sama's wish. Remembering his lore about the Dragon Balls, the Eternal Dragon cannot grant wishes that are beyond the creator of the Dragon Balls, which means that the maker of the Super Dragon Balls is equal to, if not greater than, the power of Xeno-Sama. If becoming a Super Namekian is the first step, then maybe becoming a Namekian god is the next. However, why was Slug, the only confirmed Super Namekian warrior, not able to advance to the next stage of power? The lore focused around the Super Namekians states that they are easily prone to corruption and fall prey to their own vanity, losing themselves and drowning in the power that they've gained. It was that very issue that made Vegeta think failing to overcome their darker impulses was the key to why Super Namekians couldn't advance. And for those who think that the unnamed Namekian was a Super Namekian, then they were wrong. Kami and Piccolo fused are not a Super Namekian, though he was about as strong as one. He never fully reached that stage. The nameless Namekian halted the processes by splitting with the darkness in his heart before ever undergoing that transformation, thus acting as more of a rebirth than simply splitting their bodies. The nameless Namekian must have been a hybrid, high fighting capability, and the ability to create Dragon Balls. When your ancestor split, he divided his evil half with his warrior abilities and stayed as a Dragon Clan member. This must be why you are so much weaker than your original incarnation. Vegeta thought that if Kami had tamed and defeated the darkness in his heart, he might have become a true Super Namekian whose future evolution wasn't cut off. Heck, maybe the original Super Namekian god made a wish so that those with wicked hearts would never be able to achieve the pinnacle form of their race. That could be a plausible explanation as well. Unfortunately, the nameless Namekian ceased to exist before any of it could be revealed. Vegeta couldn't even imagine the consequences of an evil Namekian god with the power to make Super Dragon Balls. The thought of what they could and would do to the universe, it was just too frightening to think about. After explaining his theory, Piccolo seemed interested but more skeptical about it all. Vegeta then said, "You could only gain and have nothing to lose, so why not give it a try?" Piccolo shook his shoulders and said, "If it can help me beat Goku, I will at least try." Vegeta smiled and told Piccolo a joke to get King Kai to laugh when Piccolo's face turned red and shouted, "Do I actually have to say that?" Vegeta nodded his head in affirmation. Piccolo turned over to King Kai and said, "How come Beerus's attendant failed to stop the destruction of a certain planet?" King Kai raised a brow. He had a bit of a grudge on Beerus for destroying his planet. However, what Piccolo said next made him keel over. He had to take a Whis. King Kai busted up and finally agreed to let Piccolo train with the others. For the next 5 months or so, Goku and Vegeta had already mastered everything King Kai would teach. The Spirit Bomb, reading memories, the Kaioken, better ki mastery, and some decent martial arts. Vegeta had banished the thought of using the Kaioken technique, and in the end chose to focus on training his magic. He was using the knowledge he gained about crafting spells to create a new spell based on the Kaioken. He had chosen to take the 5 stat-boosting spells and 1 combat spell and dismantle the spell's structures. Accelerate tension. Combat, party, all. Doubles your agility. Buff, tension. Combat, party, single. Increases your defense by 50. Kerbuff, tension. Combat, party. Increases your defense by oomph, tension.
Combat party single.
Doubles your attack power. Fen spell, tension. Combat, single. Protects from all types of magic. The 5 above showed no problems in their ability to merge into a single spell, however the last one was most important. Magic burst, tension. Combat, enemy all. A giant explosion that causes about 2 points of damage for every 1 MP used. Not so much interested in the explosion part, but the spell structure of the MP drain. Vegeta quickly dismantled Magic Burst. He had aligned all the spells in a similar fashion that resembled the key technique Kaioken. As he pieced the clues together from King Kai's teachings, Vegeta's genius shone brilliantly as he succeeded in creating the technique. Plus, thanks to the recent help Vegeta received from Guru's teachings, it allowed him better understand his mana crafting capabilities. Vegeta smiled as he studied his new spell. Kukuroken, Rising Spirit Fist. Combat, Boost, Single. The spell can multiply power in the same manner as the Kaioken without putting stress on the body. Mana drains 10,000 per second for ×2 and 20,000 MP per second for 3 times. The progression remains the same for every increased multiple. So if I use X20, I will drain 10,000 per second. Vegeta stood up and used it. His body was suddenly covered in a light blue aura. The area shook as his power skyrocketed. Everyone stared in shock as he turned into a Super Saiyan, and his power continued to shoot through the roof. Unlike the Kaioken, he wouldn't have to perfect the Super Saiyan states to the no stamina loss stage, or SSB, to use this technique. However, the drain on his mana was no joke. He only had 1/10 of his maximum ki level. So while in Super Saiyan form, his power level had reached 2.250 billion, giving Vegeta a maximum of 205 million MP. Every minute Vegeta held up his X20 Kokuroken spell, he lost 12.6 million MP per second. He stopped the technique and smiled. What was that, Vegeta? King Kai and Goku asked at the same time. The Kaioken doesn't suit me, so I made a spell that's similar to it. Vegeta's answer left King Kai stunned. Magic, huh? Like the spells Baba uses? Goku asked. Similar, yes, Vegeta said. What a genius, King Kai thought. I can't believe he was able to alter my technique like that. Goku laughed. Well, as long as I'm in the mastered Super Saiyan form, I can do that too. Goku powered up and used his Kaioken X20. The ground around them began to shake. For the first time since they came here, both Piccolo and Krillin could feel the peak of Goku's power. Piccolo was more determined than ever to learn the Kaioken. Goku's current limit is Kaioken is indeed 20. Anymore and he risks hurting his body. Piccolo, however, has advanced regeneration and a physique that might be able to take him to even higher levels of the Kaioken technique. 50 times, 100 times, and maybe even 1,000 times might be possible for him. If I can just get to 50, I can gain the same strength as this Super Saiyan form. However, I would need it to go to ×1,000 to equal out to his Super Saiyan Kaioken form. Piccolo gritted his teeth. Is becoming a Super Namekian the only way for me to match up against Son Goku? With 6 months of training, Krillin had barely managed to use X2. However, there was a lot of progress in his abilities, much more than he would have in canon. Piccolo's new power level, Krillin's new power level. Pleased with everyone's training, Vegeta thought that since Frieza could arrive at Earth any week, they should go back to Earth and use his training room to speed up those who are weaker yet still wish to fight.